Chapter 1638. Big Brother Noah. Lysana cheered, jumped up, and pounced on Noah. Noah hurriedly stepped forward, stretched out his hand, and pulled Lysana into his arms. He immediately hugged her warm and fragrant body. "Noah, you're finally back." Elfman shouted at Noah. "That's great. Now that's a real man." The indifference on Myra's pretty face eased up a lot. Then, her whole body flashed with a light, and the acceptance of Satan's soul was removed. She returned to her usual appearance. However, she was no longer wearing a princess dress that accentuated her gentle temperament. Instead, she was wearing a simple shirt and shorts. It was obvious that she was wearing this for the sake of the special training. Not only that, her soft white hair was tied into a ponytail with a hairband. Her bangs hung freely on her forehead and moved with the wind. Looking at Mira like this, Noah smiled with nostalgia. "It's been a long time since I've seen you like this. It's just like when you were young." When she was young, Mira also liked to tie her hair into a single ponytail. However, back then, she dressed like a delinquent girl and exuded the aura of a delinquent girl. Now, Myra's every move revealed her gentleness. Even the smile on her face was rather sweet and was no longer as bad as when she was young. Under such circumstances, Mira tilted her head and said with a smile, "But you're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all." "That's not it. I've changed too." Noah shrugged and pushed Lysana away a little, pinching her little nose. "At least, when I was young, I didn't know that liking the two of you was such a blissful thing." Lysana raised her head proudly and puffed out her chest. However, she was all smiles. "Now you're regretting not liking me and Big Sister Mira earlier, aren't you?" Mira seemed to be reminded by Noah's words and couldn't help but chuckle. "Back then, you didn't even realize how Lysana and I felt. You made us feel so tired." Noah laughed dryly. When he was young, Noah was indeed a little brat who didn't know anything about love. Naturally, he couldn't understand the feelings of Mira and Lysana. On the other hand, Mira and Lysana had liked Noah since they were young, so it was inevitable that they would feel bitter because of the slow Noah. Well, let's not talk about the dark history of that time. In short, although it was a little embarrassing, it was still a good memory. Noah, who was carrying Lysana with one hand, extended his other hand to Mira. "Come here, let me hug you." Mira obediently stepped forward and snuggled into Noah's embrace. She felt Noah's warmth with a serene expression on her face. "It's good that you're back." "I'm sorry," Noah said softly as he hugged his two fiancées tightly. "Sorry for making you worry." "I'm really worried," said Lysana, who was also leaning against Noah. She seemed to be complaining. "When I woke up on Celestial Wolf Island and didn't see Big Brother Noah, I thought that something had happened to Big Brother Noah when you were fighting Econarolia. I almost cried." "Econarolia?" Noah narrowed his eyes, a cold glint flashing in his deep, dark eyes. "That lizard does have some skills, but it's still far from being able to do anything to me. If there's a chance, I'll definitely make it pay for what happened that day." As expected of Noah, Elfman couldn't help but exclaim, "You're a real man." Mira and Lysana nodded as well. "Collect a debt from the Black Dragon who destroyed a country in Revelation?" If these words were heard by others, they would definitely snort disdainfully. However, Mira and Lysana trusted Noah unconditionally. Therefore, Mira and Lysana didn't have any doubts about Noah's words. Not to mention, the battle between Noah and Econarolia was also witnessed by the main members of the Celestial Wolf group. Although the result was left undecided, the battle between Noah and Econarolia wasn't one-sided. Not only that, Noah also forced Econarolia into desperate straits several times, displaying extremely powerful strength. Mira and Lysana both believed that even if his opponent was the Black Dragon that destroyed a country, Noah wouldn't lose. After a heartwarming reunion, Noah, Mira, and Lysana parted ways. "Are there only the three of you here?" Noah's gaze swept across the Strauss siblings. "Where are the rest?" Naz, Gray, Alusha, Lucy, Wendy, Lebby, Hubby, Summer, Lulu, Jet, and Troy went to the beach. Lysana replied obediently. Laxes, Fred, Bike Slow, and Abagrin went to another city. Gajil, Jubia, Kana, and Lily went to the mountain like us, but I don't know which mountain they went to." Elfman made a pose as if he was flexing his muscles. Uncle left not long after returning to the guild and continued to travel. The rest of our companions also went to other places to train. Mira clapped her hands as if she had thought of something. "By the way, Noah, you still don't know, right? Kana and Kildas are actually father and daughter?" Noah made a sound that was a little off topic as he spoke in astonishment. "What did you say?" "Kana and Kildas are father and daughter. This is true." Lysana continued Myra's words. "It is said that Kana came to the guild to find her biological father and then joined our guild, but she never had the chance to acknowledge Kildas. We were also shocked when we found out. According to her, it seems that she felt that Kildas was too high to reach, and she never had the chance to acknowledge him, so she dragged it out until now." Elfman folded his arms as he spoke logically. Originally, it seemed that if he succeeded in the S-level magic shooter promotion exam and became an S-level magic shooter, he would acknowledge Kildas as his father. That's not straightforward at all. Not like a man at all. Kana is not a man. She is a girl. Mira seemed to kindly remind him. "Girls have a lot of difficulties. You can't laugh at them like that." She will acknowledge him after becoming an S-rank archmage? Noah rubbed his forehead. "I see. No wonder Kana was so obsessed with becoming an S-rank archmage during the exam, and her behavior was so strange before the exam began. Although the process was tortuous, she still acknowledged him in the end." Lysana puffed up her cheeks. "Undoubtedly, we are all family. Wouldn't it be better to acknowledge him directly? Didn't Mira also say that girls have a lot of difficulties?" Noah laughed. "Moreover, do you think that all family members in the world are like you 3 siblings and have such a good relationship?" "No matter what, this is a good thing," Mira said regretfully. "It's a pity that Kildas immediately left the guild to travel and doesn't know about the Great Demon Battle exhibition. Otherwise, our chances of winning would be much higher." "Don't worry, sister." "Sister?" Elfman patted his chest. "Even if there is no uncle, you still have a man. Brother Elfman and I couldn't beat Mira even when we joined forces, and he still wants to replace Kildas. What a fool." Lysana hugged Noah's arm, her face full of joy. "However, now that Brother Noah is back, our chances of winning have increased." "Yes," Mira nodded, looking at Noah with a gentle gaze that could soften one's heart. "Noah will definitely make us the #1 in the Fiori Kingdom again." "Is that so?" Noah spread out his hands. "Makeo and Wakaba both believe that even if it was me, I wouldn't be able to do anything if I had a 7-year gap. Those 2 fools don't know how powerful Brother Noah is." Lysana shook Noah's arm and said expectantly, "Moreover, since Brother Noah is here, why don't you train here with us?" "Fool." Noah pinched Lysana's little nose again. "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have come all the way here." Noah's words made Mira and Lysana laugh happily. "Noah is also here to train?" Elfman grinned. "That's a real man." Everyone burst into laughter at once. Chapter 1639. Not long after, the cool night fell. On the top of a mountain not far from Magnolia, a small camp was set up. The bonfire was burning slowly, illuminating the few tents that were set up at the side. In the night sky, the round moon shone with a bright and enchanting light. Together with the bonfire, it illuminated the entire mountaintop. And in one of the tents beside the bonfire, under the thin blanket, 3 figures were entangled with each other. This entanglement lasted until late into the night. It was only when the moon began to set that the undulating blanket gradually stopped. Noah hugged his 2 charming fiancées on his left and right, his heart filled with peace. Mira and Lysana seemed to have lost all their strength from the torment. Their naked bodies were covered in sweat as they lay obediently in Noah's arms, gasping for breath. Their bodies couldn't move at all. Undoubtedly, Mira and Lysana couldn't help but feel tired after going through so much training during the day and being tormented by their sweetheart at night. However, compared to exhaustion, the 2 delicate fiancés were more satisfied. Noah lowered his head and looked at Mila and Lysana, who were lying on his left and right. Their exquisite and beautiful faces were flushed with intoxication. He reached out and stroked his two fiancés' heads. If you're tired, then hurry up and rest. Mira and Lysina were still adjusting their breathing, but they shook their heads at the same time. Hey, big brother Noah. Lysina wrapped her fair arms around Noah's neck as she snuggled up to Noah. Is there something on your mind? Noah, who was caressing Mira and Lysana's heads, paused for a moment, but he recovered soon after. After a moment of silence, Noah spoke softly. Why do you say that? The one who answered wasn't Lysina, but Mira. Because Mira looked straight into Noah's eyes, as if she was trying to see through Noah's heart. Today, instead of saying that you love us, it's more like you're acting spoiled towards us. Act coquettishly? Noah was dumbfounded. What kind of description is that? Big brother Noah, it's not realistic to continue hiding it. Lysana's face was pressed against Noah's chest. I've already told you, even if something happens to you, don't think you can hide it from the person sleeping next to you. Indeed, Lysina had said the same thing many times, and Noah had also experienced it many times. Although it sounded like a sentence without any basis, for some reason, this sentence was unusually persuasive. At the very least, it wasn't the first time Noah realized that his feelings were easily discovered by Mira and Lysina. I really can't hide anything from you guys. Noah was helpless, but he continued to stroke Mira and Lysana's heads lovingly. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed. It doesn't seem right to say that there's something on my mind. I just feel that a lot has happened today, and I'm a little tired. Tired? He was indeed tired. Not to mention the matter of the fairy tale and the fairy heart. Just the things that he encountered and learned in the space between worlds were enough to make Noah feel tired. That was to be expected, wasn't it? If one day, someone suddenly told you that you had no parents, and that you weren't even born in your mother's womb, but an existence that was created, would you be able to accept such a thing at the first moment? Of course not, right? However, Noah accepted it. This was because Noah had long had a premonition that his existence was definitely not simple. If one day, someone told you that if you didn't stand up and fight against a terrifying enemy that had the power to destroy thousands of worlds, then not only you, but also your family, friends, lovers, and all the worlds that your companions existed in would be wiped out, would you be able to make the decision to fight immediately? Of course not, right? However, Noah managed to do it. Because if even Noah didn't fight, then who else could? Moreover, Noah only wanted to rely on his own hands to protect the important people. So, Noah calmly accepted it all. If it was a normal person facing all this, they would probably be in a mess right now, right? However, Noah didn't. When he was young, in order to control his own emotions and prevent them from causing his mana to go berserk and harm his friends, Noah had no choice but to strengthen his state of mind. In the world of the Black Bullet, in order to protect the unfortunate children, in order to survive in the chaotic situation, Noah used 1.5 years to stand out in the darkness of people's hearts. At this moment, the experience of the past had turned into the strongest will, allowing Noah to accept all this and bravely face it. However, that didn't mean that Noah wasn't tired. After shouldering so many heavy responsibilities, it would be strange if he wasn't tired. This kind of tiredness, after coming in front of Mira and Lysina, could no longer be hidden. In front of his two beloved future partners, Noah unconsciously showed his tiredness. That was why Mira said that Noah was acting spoiled. However, to be more precise, it should be said that Noah was comforted by Mira and Lysina. Mira and Lysina seemed to be able to vaguely sense something and hugged Noah tightly, hoping to comfort Noah's heart. Leaning against Noah's chest and listening to Noah's heartbeat, Mira said softly, "If you're tired, then take a proper rest." Yes, Lysina also couldn't help but agree. If it's big brother Noah, I believe that no matter what happens, he'll be able to solve it easily. The two girls were very considerate and didn't ask Noah about the things he was hiding in his heart. Since Noah didn't say anything, it meant that either it was something unimportant or it was something that Noah had to solve alone. Although Mira and Lysina felt sorry for Noah and wanted to help Noah, they couldn't help it. Just like how Mira and Lysina could clearly sense Noah's thoughts, Noah naturally understood what his two fiancés were thinking. All right, don't think too much, Noah said firmly as he hugged his two fiancées tightly. Even if it's just for the two of you, I won't compromise with anyone. As he spoke, Noah stared at the top of the tent. His dark and deep eyes glowed with an unprecedented brilliance, even if it's an existence that can destroy the world. Upon hearing Noah's words, Mira and Lysana's hearts calmed down. I know that you must have something very important to do. Mira looked up at Noah and revealed an extremely gentle smile. I just hope that you can remember that no matter what happens, there are people here waiting for you to come back. Big Sister Mira is right. No matter what happens, we will wait for Big Brother Noah to come back. Lysana nodded firmly. So, Big Brother Noah, no matter what happens, you must remember to come back, okay? Of course. Noah couldn't help but kiss his two fiancés' foreheads. I can't bear to give up on my two delicate fiancés. Fiancés. Mira didn't resist Noah's intimacy and only murmured longingly, I wonder when I can become your real wife. Upon hearing that, Noah was stunned on the spot and fell into deep thought. Lysana said with a hint of longing in her voice, Come to think of it, in this era, we were already engaged 7 years ago. In the end, we haven't gotten married for 7 whole years. Looking at Mira and Lysana's longing expression, Noah couldn't help but recall Gaia and Alea's words. Don't leave behind any regrets. Noah mumbled and finally made up his mind. That's right. It's time for us to get married. This time, it was Mira and Lysana's turn to be stunned. Under such circumstances, Noah suddenly smiled. After the great demon battle exhibition competition, let's get married. The two sisters widened their eyes at the same time. Then they smiled happily. Chapter 1640. The next morning. What? In front of the already extinguished bonfire, Elfman let out a loud cry filled with shock. We're getting married. Just as he shouted in shock, Elfman's head was viciously slapped, causing him to scream in pain. Why are you being so loud? Noah retracted his hand and glared at Elfman. Your sister and sister are still sleeping. Keep it down. Elfman immediately shut his mouth obediently with a resentful look on his face. Don't look at how big Elfman is. He is very afraid of Mira and Lysana, especially Mira. When Mira was really angry, Elfman didn't even dare to take a deep breath. Noah, who knew Elfman's personality well, smirked. By the way, is it surprising that we've decided to get married? After hearing Noah's words, Elfman felt that he was making a fuss out of nothing. After all, Noah and the Strauss sisters were engaged. Since that was the case, it wouldn't be strange for them to get married at any time, right? Or rather, in the eyes of outsiders, Noah, Mira, and Lysana were already engaged 7 years ago, and they were only planning to get married 7 years later. That was already very slow. Of course, to the core members of the guild who were frozen on Celestial Wolf Island, Noah, Mira, and Lysana's engagement was only half a year ago. Even so, if there were no accidents, it would be time for them to get married in half a year. After all, Noah, Mira, and Lysana were already adults, weren't they? Is that so? Are my sister and Lysana finally going to get married? Elfman scratched his head. Although I knew that such a day would come, when I think of being the only one at home in the future, even a man would feel lonely. After marrying Noah, Mira and Lysana naturally wouldn't live with Elfman anymore. Ever since we were young, the three of us have never been apart. Elfman said emotionally. Now, sister and sister are both gone. I don't know when I'll get used to it. I'm sorry, Elfman. Noah smiled bitterly. I can only say that no matter what, I will make Mira and Lysana happy. That's enough. Elfman wasn't a wishy-washy person. After patting his cheeks, he pulled himself together. When you plan to marry my sister and Lysana? Wait until the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition competition is over. Noah smiled. First of all, I need to make Fairy Tale the #1 guild in the Kingdom of Fiori. Only then can I hold the grandest wedding and let those two sisters marry into my family. Oh, as expected of Noah, you're a real man. Elfman said with admiration. Oh, right? How are you going to solve the housing problem? You can't let sister and Lysana live in the guild with you, right? That's true. Noah stroked his chin. It seems that before marrying Mira and Lysana, I have to think about the housing problem. Do you need help? Elfman immediately asked. If you need money, I should be able to help. If I have to rely on my brother-in-law to pay for my new house, won't I be despised to death? Noah rejected without hesitation. So, there's no need. But are you okay? Elfman reminded. Although it's a little unmanly to say this, Noah, you must have squandered all your wealth for the guild, right? Indeed, Noah had already squandered all of the money he had in this world. He had exchanged it for magic crystals to help Fairy Tale survive the most difficult period of her life. In addition, Noah's treasure vault was left in the world space, so it could be said that he was now penniless. It was because of this that Elfman offered to help, right? Now that you mention it, this is indeed a problem. Noah frowned. Also, holding a wedding is not a small expense. It seems that I have to think about the money. So you still need my help, right? Elfman patted his chest. Although I don't have much savings, I should be able to help a lot. After all, I'm a man. Holding a wedding and buying a house? Where did you get so much money? Noah couldn't help but laugh. Moreover, I don't want to just hold an ordinary wedding, and I don't want Mira and Lysana to live in a cheap house. If we really have to spend money with your little savings, it's probably useless even if you have 10 times more. As a man, I really want to refute you, but I have to say that you're telling the truth. Elfman was speechless. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and shouted. Right. I almost forgot. If we get first place in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition, I think there's a prize of 30 million J. 30 million J? Noah was surprised. There's such a thing? What? Elfman asked curiously. Didn't the president tell you about this? No. Noah was speechless, and his heart skipped a beat. Grandfather wants us to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition. It can't be because of the 30 million J, right? How is that possible? Elfman shook his head and denied it. The president is such a man, he definitely won't compromise for a little money. Elfman's words could not be said to be wrong. However, for some reason, Noah felt that Makarov had decided to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition because of the 30 million J. As for getting the title of the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, that was just a side benefit, right? After all, sometimes Grandpa can also be very immoral and have no limits. Elfman looked curiously at Noah, who was muttering to himself. What are you talking about? Nothing. Noah laughed and spread his hands, returning to the topic at hand. However, even if there's a 30 million J prize, that money should be used to revive the guild. How can it be used by me alone? Today, Fairy Tale was no longer the same as before. It wasn't the #1 guild in the Kingdom of Fiori, and it didn't have many members. Even the commissions they had were few and far between. It was impossible for them to support the activities of a guild. Therefore, the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition's prize money was a timely reign for Fairy Tale. If they could reclaim the title of the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom and obtain the 30 million J prize money, then it wouldn't take long for Fairy Tale to return to its heyday, right? As the next guild leader, Noah would never use that sum of money to buy a new house and hold a wedding for himself. Well, a problem that can be solved with money is not a real problem. Noah patted Elfman's shoulder. As long as the guild returns to its previous state, do you have to worry about not having enough money to complete the most difficult commissions? That's true. With your ability, you can complete any commission no matter how difficult it is. If you want to earn money, this is enough. Elfman scratched his head. If that's the case, then I won't worry too much. However, if there's anything you need my help with, don't hesitate to ask. This is my sister's wedding and happiness. I should help when necessary. That's what a real man is. All right. Noah nodded quickly. If necessary, I won't hesitate. As they spoke, Mira and Lysana came out of the tent at the same time. Sorry, Brother Noah, Brother Elfman. Lysana yawned cutely. I woke up late. Sorry to keep you waiting. Mira smiled apologetically. I'll start cooking now. After dinner, we'll start today's training. Oh, Elfman replied loudly. That's what a real man is. Brother Elfman, don't shout so loudly. Lysana said with some dissatisfaction. You're making my ears hurt. Seeing the Strauss siblings getting along well, Noah smiled knowingly. Just like that, the family's training began again. Chapter 1641. Just as Noah and his group began their 2-month training in various parts of the Fiori Kingdom, the return of the main members of the Fairy Tale Guild, who was once the #1 guild in the kingdom, and the fact that they were preparing to participate in the annual Great Magic Battle Show was also known to everyone. Compared to the past, although the current fairy tale was not as famous as before, there were still many people paying attention to this guild. For example, the council, ever since the return of the main members of Fairy Tale, had been paying attention to the guild's movements. Not for other reasons, but because the members of the council thought that since the main members of the guild who were the most troublemakers had returned, they naturally had to keep an eye on them and not let this guild cause any more trouble. In addition to the council, many other famous guilds were also paying attention to Fairy Tale. For example, the Blue Pegasus. For example, the Lamia Scale. These two guilds clearly knew how incredible this magic guide, guild named Fairy Tale, was. In the case of the return of the main members, the others did not think much of this matter. Only Blue Pegasus and Lamia Scales, the guilds that had been in close contact with Fairy Tale, had been paying attention to their movements. Therefore, after knowing that Fairy Tale was preparing to participate in the Great Magic Battle Show, the members of these two guilds also began to look forward to it and prepared to put in the highest level of combat power. In addition to the guilds that had close contact with Fairy Tale, there was another guild that had been paying attention to the movements of Fairy Tale. No, there was something slightly wrong with this statement. To be precise, it should be said that the members of this guild had been paying attention to the movements of some people in Fairy Tale. Sabretooth. 7 years ago, it was just a small guild with no reputation. A few years ago, after changing the guild leader and bringing in 5 powerful magic shooters, it stood out from the many other guilds in the Fiori Kingdom and became the #1 guild in the kingdom. Now, in the headquarters of this guild, the 5 powerful magic shooters who changed the entire guild were all gathered in a room. It was a discussion room in the guild headquarters. In the discussion room, 4 people had already arrived. One of them had a head of short blonde hair and was sitting on the sofa. He was about 20 years old. The other was standing behind the sofa, like a shadow in the dark corner. He was about the same age as the former. The other was wearing a gentleman's hat and a masquerade on his face. He had long blonde hair and was leaning against the wall of the discussion room. The other was a burly man with muscles all over his body. He wore a tiger skin skirt and had tattoos on both his left and right arms. He looked like the leader of a gang. 4 of the 5 powerful sorcerers who had transformed the Saber-Tooth stood there quietly, waiting for the arrival of the last person. They didn't have to wait too long before the last person slowly appeared. Sorry to keep you waiting. The person who entered the discussion room was a very slim girl with waist-length black hair. Her bangs were parted in the middle, and her hair was tied into a bun on both sides. Her eyelashes were long and slender. She was wearing a woman's off-the-shoulder dress similar to a cheongsam. Looking at the girl, the man sitting on the sofa with the posture of a playboy opened his eyes, looked over, and grinned. "You're finally here, Mississippi. It took a little bit of time, Christine." The girl replied with a dignified etiquette, but it gave people a feeling of arrogance. Then, her eyes swept over the shadow-like man, the blonde gentleman, and the muscular man. "Roger, Lucifer, and Olga, sorry to keep you waiting." "It doesn't matter." The shadow-like man called Roger said very coldly. "I just hope it's not something boring. It's only 22 minutes and 47 seconds. It's not that long." The blonde gentleman called Lucifer pressed on his hat and spoke with assurance like an elegant knight. "At least, that's what my memory says. What's the matter that requires the 4 of us to be gathered? Miss Maniba?" The burly man, known as Olga, crossed his arms and glanced at the young girl in the cheongsam-like dress. "There shouldn't be a mission that requires the 5 of us to move together, right? If there is such a mission, I want to try." The man called Christine said in an unruly manner. "I thought the annihilation mission I received last time would be difficult. Just in case, I even asked Roger to go with me. In the end, those Dark Guild scum were simply too weak. It was so boring. This time, it's not a boring matter. The girl called Miss Maniba by Olia smiled sweetly. I'm here to tell you that we've already chosen the 5th member to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition. In other words, Miss is determined not to participate. Christine spread out his hands. Well, it's fine. Anyway, it's enough to have Roger and me. With Lucifer and Olga, with the 4 of us, the first place is within reach. Although that's the case, if the contestant isn't qualified, it will affect the reputation of our guild. A flirtatious smile appeared on Maniba's face. So, for the time being, Father and I have chosen a qualified contestant. As soon as she finished speaking, the door of the meeting room was opened. From outside the meeting room, a person slowly walked in with strong and forceful steps. It was a girl. She was a girl who was younger than anyone else present. She was only around 17 or 18 years old. The girl had short white hair and wore a tight white dress. She wore a pair of snow boots and a coat that looked like a winter coat. She looked very high-end and beautiful. And the girl did indeed have an admirable beauty. Although her slender and plump body was hidden under a wide and thick robe, one could still see a trace of good figure. However, such a high-end and beautiful girl's cute and delicate face was tense and expressionless. However, the young girl's eyes revealed a kind of persistence, a kind of willpower. Looking at the girl, the group of people in the meeting room were stunned. Xuanai, Christine said with some surprise. The person who plans to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition with us is Xuanai. Roger also glanced at the high-end and beautiful girl, then looked away as if he had lost interest. He was extremely cold. As for Lucifer and Olga, they looked at each other. What a rare thing. Xuanai actually plans to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition. Lucifer smiled elegantly. In my memory, Xuanai rarely takes the initiative to show herself, right? The girl named Xuanai was silent for a moment. In the next second, with an extremely determined expression, she said such a sentence. Because in this Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition, there's a person that I hope to fight with. Is that so? Christine laughed out loud. So Xuanai, you also have an opponent that you want to fight? Isn't that the same as me and Roger? In order to participate in the competition, Xuanai defeated all the members except for the 5 of us in the internal competition of the guild. Maniba said leisurely. So, this time, let Xuanai participate in the competition with you. Everyone nodded indifferently. Seeing this, Xuanai lowered her head and her eyes flickered. I hope to see you again, Lord Noah. Chapter 1642. Today, the sun was shining brightly. On the top of a mountain not far from Magnolia, Noah stood quietly on the edge of the cliff with his eyes closed. His mind was slowly becoming peaceful. Clang! Suddenly, without any warning, Noah's body flashed with flame-like light and turned into a layer of light film, shrouding the outline of his body. The air trembled slightly. With the trembling sound, the blue flame-like light shrouding the outline of Noah's body began to shine brighter and brighter, causing the magic power to rise steadily and burn constantly, setting off waves of atmospheric fluctuations. Under such circumstances, the ground where Noah stood began to tremble slightly. Some of the gravel scattered there even vibrated, stirring up a series of pa-pa sounds. That was not the end. As if unaware of the changes in the surroundings, the magic power on Noah's body became more and more intense, causing the surrounding abnormal phenomena to become more intense and intense. It didn't take long for the demonic flames that rose from Noah's body to turn into a beam of light that soared into the sky. It set off violent waves and shock waves, causing the ground to tremble repeatedly. It was extremely terrifying. In the next second, the magic power beam that soared into the sky trembled and suddenly turned from blue to golden. At this moment, all the magic power rising from Noah's body turned into divine power. Moreover, the entire transformation process took less than a second. Then, at a certain moment, the golden divine power suddenly turned into phosphorescent energy. That was the energy of divine power. With his eyes closed, Noah was constantly transforming the nature of the energy in his body. Sometimes it was magic power. Sometimes it was divine power. Sometimes it was divine power. Sometimes Noah would even transform the endless energy into pure mental strength, allowing his five senses to become extremely clear. In this way, Noah skillfully transformed the nature of various energies, allowing magic power, divine power, and mental strength to continuously transform each other and become more and more familiar with each other. And Noah's actions caused the energy beam that soared from his body to constantly change color, causing the waves and shock waves to become more and more intense. In the distance, Mira, Lisanna, and Elfman, who had just finished their training, wiped their sweat while looking at the energy beam that soared into the sky. Their eyes could not help but be filled with deep amazement. Although I've been watching Noah train like this for 2 whole months, I'm still very surprised every time I see it. Myra's delicate and beautiful face was full of solemnity. Generally speaking, even archmages like Kildas and Laxas would use up all their magic power in just a few minutes and take a few days to recover. But Noah is not in this situation at all. That's right. Lisanna stared in Noah's direction with shock and amazement in her eyes. In the past 2 months, Brother Noah has been squandering his magic power like this almost every day, but I've never seen him use up all his magic power, nor did I see him need time to recover. It's as if he has endless magic power. But that's impossible, isn't it? Elfman said seriously. There's no such thing as unlimited magic power in this world. Even Noah can't do that. He's not a man. Although there were parts of Elfman's words that needed to be ridiculed, it had to be said that no matter who it was, they would all come to the same conclusion. If the so-called unlimited magic power really existed, it would have caused a sensation in the world of magic. After all, when Edras, who was connected to Aslan, lost his magic power, it was as if the world had come to an end. In order to obtain magic power, Edras did not hesitate to use space magic to turn Aslan's archmages into magic crystals. Unlimited magic power? That was something that only existed in dreams. If such a thing really existed, the world of magic would have been shaken. Magic had existed a long time ago, but there had never been such a thing as unlimited magic power, and now it was even more impossible for there to be such a thing. That was what Mira, Lisanna, and Elfman were thinking. Even Mira and Lisanna, who thought highly of Noah, did not think that Noah could use unlimited magic power. It was precisely because this matter was so unbelievable that Makarov tried his best to hide the existence of lumen starlight and treated it seriously. If such a thing were to be known by the world, it would definitely cause a huge commotion and impact. But sister, Noah is indeed releasing a large amount of magic power now, right? Elfman suddenly asked doubtfully. I've been thinking about it before. Sometimes, Noah doesn't seem to be releasing magic power, but something else, right? After hearing Elfman's words, Mira and Lisanna looked at each other. Clearly, the two sisters also had the same doubts. Sometimes, Noah didn't use magic power. How could this matter be hidden from the Strauss siblings? After all, Noah had been cultivating like this for the past 2 months without hiding at all. Mira and the others naturally noticed. But if it's not magic power, what else could it be? Lisanna asked. Could it be that there is some other mysterious power that we don't know about apart from magic power? Maybe. Mira shook her head and looked at Noah, who was surrounded by a huge pillar of energy that shot into the sky, with a gentle smile. No matter what kind of power it is, as long as it is beneficial to Noah, isn't that enough? Lisanna and Elfman nodded in agreement. In fact, as long as Mira, Lisanna, and Elfman asked Noah about it, Noah definitely wouldn't mind telling them a secret. However, the Strauss siblings didn't have any intention of getting to the bottom of it. They had always thought that no matter what, as long as it was beneficial to Noah, everything else wasn't important. That was why the Strauss siblings didn't ask anything. And since they didn't ask, Noah had no reason to explain himself. This was a situation that could only be created by the most extreme trust. Without a doubt, Noah trusted Mira, Lysana, and Elfman from the bottom of his heart. The three siblings also trusted Noah from the bottom of their hearts. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have trained his control of energy so brazenly in front of the family. After an unknown amount of time had passed, the phenomenon of the earthquake began to slowly subside. The waves and shock waves that swept through the surroundings like a storm also began to disappear. The pillar of energy that shot into the sky descended bit by bit. After a while, it shrunk back into Noah's body, allowing Noah's robes to calm down. Only then did Noah open his eyes, a trace of satisfaction appearing in them. In 2 months, my control of energy has finally increased by a few levels. Now, Noah no longer had a problem with energy consumption. Thus, the amount of energy he could control directly affected the power Noah could unleash when he used it. With my current control of energy, no matter what kind of mystic I use, it should be enough to unleash its greatest power, right? Noah had already felt this a month ago. That was because a month ago, Noah was already able to unleash the greatest power of the magic and spells he had learned. I thought that as long as I continue to increase my control of energy, the power of magic and spells will continue to increase. It's a pity that there's a limit to the magic and spells I've learned. Noah calculated silently. For example, no matter how much mana I inject into the magic, it won't be able to increase the degree of enhancement. However, Noah should be content with what he had. No matter what, if I use enhancement to strengthen my body now, I'll almost have the physical strength of a god. In other words, Noah could reach 5 digits just by relying on strengthening magic alone, and it would be at the top. Today is the end of my cultivation. Noah raised his head and looked in Magnolia's direction. Time to go back. Chapter 1643. Fiori Kingdom, Magnolia. On the street outside the Fairy Tale Guild, a few people were staggering towards the entrance of the guild. When they reached the entrance of the guild, they all fell to the ground. I'm back. Naz was lying on the ground, looking listless. Finally back. Not only Naz, but also Gray Lucy, Wendy, Hubby, Xia Lulu, and even Lebby, who were walking with him, looked extremely tired. They were either sitting or lying on the ground, looking like they had been forced to do hard labor for a few days. They were so exhausted that even moving was difficult. Among the people present, there was only one person who could still maintain a good condition. This is too much, you guys. Alusha put her hands on her hips and lectured them seriously. There's a very important competition waiting for us. If the president sees your disappointing performances, he might exclude you from the team. At that time, you'll be the ones to regret it. The annual festival that determined the ranking of all the guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, the Great Magic Battle Exhibition. As the name suggested, it was a competition that only the Magic Guide Guild that belonged to the Fiori Kingdom could participate. The participants were not only the elites of the major guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, but there were also some special people who had strange magic. It could be said that it was a fierce competition. Just by imagining it, one could imagine how fierce the competition would be. Of course, although it was a competition between the major guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, it was impossible for all the members of the guild to participate. Although the rules were different every year, and even the content of the competition was different, there was one thing that every great magic battle exhibition had in common. That was, every participant had to be a team of 5 members from the same guild. In other words, if Fairy Tale wanted to participate in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition, they had to choose at least 5 members to form a group. Otherwise, they would not even be qualified to sign up. After this period of training, Naz and the others had undoubtedly improved their strength. However, this was definitely the same for everyone else. If Nazi and the others continued to maintain this listless and exhausted appearance, it was not impossible for them to be excluded from the participation quota. That definitely won't do. Naz immediately braced himself and struggled to get up from the ground. I will definitely participate in the Great Demon Battle Exhibition exercise. Me too. Gray struggled to get up as well. If I can't even participate in the competition, then there's no point in becoming like this. That being said, but looking at Naz and Gray's swaying appearance, it was probably really hard for them, right? However, It's already very good to be able to stand up. Lucy moaned weakly. It's hard for me to even move now. As expected of Brother Naz and Brother Gray, when he smiled weakly as well. The two of you will definitely be able to become members of the competition. That's hard to say. Although Kildas has already gone on a trip and is not in the guild, Laxes and Mira are still in the guild. Gadjaloo and Julian are also strong candidates for the competition. It's not certain if Naz and Gray will be chosen. Rebby was still lying on the ground and glanced at Alusha. Well, Elusa, on the other hand, will definitely be chosen. Love. Habby raised his hand weakly. After all, it's Alusha. I say, don't forget about Lily. Xiao Lulu forced herself to be alert and flew in the air, snorting softly. Lily is also very strong, but he can't use it freely in Aslan. Perhaps he will also be chosen as the representative of the Surpassers in the guild. Indeed, Alusha smiled slightly. There are also many powerful magic shooters in our guild. Let's clearly tell everyone in the Fiori Kingdom during the Great Magic Battle exhibition. Oh, everyone immediately raised their hands and responded loudly. The next moment, a somewhat playful laughter entered the ears of the group. It's good to have this ambition, but before that, you have to return to the guild first. If you lie on the streets, you won't be convincing at all. The sudden voice made Alusha and the rest slightly startled. Then, they turned their heads and looked in the direction of the guild's entrance. They saw that in front of the guild's entrance, a group of fairy tale members had all appeared out of nowhere and were smiling at Alusha and the rest. The one in the lead was Noah. I knew it. If it's so noisy, it must be you guys who are back. Noah shook his head amusedly. I haven't seen you guys for a few months. Seeing you guys so energetic, I'm relieved. Hearing this, the crowd finally reacted. Noah? Alusha was shocked and surprised. You're back. I came back after you guys left the guild and went out to train. Noah's gaze met Alusha's and shrugged. Speaking of which, you guys didn't really think that I was killed by Aconarolia, right? Of course not. Gray stepped forward and punched Noah's chest fiercely. You brat, you've always been good at doing things that surprise us since you were young. How could a mere dragon kill you? What do you mean a mere dragon? Naz immediately retorted. If it was Iginiru, even Noah would be defeated. Idiot. Lucy sighed. No one is comparing with you. What an idiot. Xiao Lulu said arrogantly. You're not the only one who was raised by a dragon. Love. Habby spread his hands. But this is Naz. While everyone was surprised by Noah's return, when he also came to Noah with a happy face. Brother Noah, welcome back. Looking at the happy Wendy, Noah couldn't help but reach out and touch Wendy's head. Welcome back, too. Wendy suddenly showed a shy and bashful smile, but she didn't reject Noah's intimate action. There was even a hint of comfort in her expression, which made Xia Lulu a little jealous. You only know how to please that male. But it's great that you're back. Alusha smiled at Noah. With you, our guild's chances of winning are much higher. After all, you're not the only ones who have cultivation. Noah returned a smile to Alusha. Although I'm a month late, I still cultivated a little and finally achieved some results. Oh, is that so? Naz was eager to try and clenched his fist at Noah. In that case, we might as well take advantage of the situation to determine the winner. You really don't learn to be obedient. Gray curled his lips. How can I win against Noah, you idiot? Naz glared at Gray. Did you just say you play with eggs? Exhibitionist. I'm talking about idiots and masochists. Gray glared back, unwilling to be outdone. Even your ears don't work well. Just don't participate in the great demonic battle exhibition and go home to play with eggs. You really said you played with eggs, you bastard. Naz, who are you calling a bastard? You idiot. Gray, shut up. Stop arguing. Alusha, love, Gray and Naz, there they are. Lucy complained habitually. Hubby 2 and Hubby 3. Really? Xiao Lulu turned her head away. They're all idiots. Seeing this noisy scene, Noah laughed. The members of Fairy Tale also laughed. All right, let's all go in, Mira said gently. The president is ready to announce the list of contestants. You've all come back at the right time. Everyone nodded their heads and walked into the guild while chatting and laughing. In Fairy Tale, Makarov was standing on the stage where he usually performed and made important announcements. He looked down at the audience. Very good, everyone is here. Now, let's announce the list of contestants. Everyone held their breaths. Chapter 1644. First of all, there are two pieces of news that I have to tell everyone. While everyone was holding their breaths, Makarov seemed to be deliberately whetting their appetites. He changed the topic and said this. The first piece of news is related to the great demonic martial arts competition, and the second piece of news is related to the future of our guild. Although Makarov looked like he was whetting everyone's appetite, his expression was quite serious. That was natural. No matter which piece of news it was not something that everyone could ignore. Let me tell everyone the first piece of news. Makarov coughed and said, in order to participate in this year's great demonic martial arts competition and obtain victory so that our guild can become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom again, I have carefully studied the official rules of this year's competition and found that there is no limit to the number of teams that can participate. Therefore, I have decided that this time we will select 2 teams. 2 teams? Everyone was surprised. 2 teams? Noah was slightly startled, but he was not too surprised. Is this okay, Guildmaster? Alusha raised her hand and asked. In the previous year's great demonic martial arts competition, there was no guild that allowed 2 teams to participate at the same time. But it is true that there is no limit this year, Makarov said shamelessly. So, no matter what, we did not break the rules. Isn't that fine? Everyone was suddenly speechless. However, since there was no limit to the rules, it was not impossible to do so. Since that is the case, why not select a few more teams to participate? Makarov smiled slyly. If that is the case, won't our chances of winning be higher? Forget it. Wakaba poured a bucket of cold water on them. In the previous years, our guild was at the bottom. This time, although our main members are participating, if we can't get a place after sending so many teams, it would be too embarrassing. Hey, Gray said in annoyance. You guys are too unconfident in yourselves. Well, this can't be helped, right? Lucy sighed. After all, anyone would feel that using 3 months to catch up with a 7-year gap is too much of a stretch. But don't we still have Laxes, Alusha, and Mira? I don't think that many people will be able to catch up to those 3 in 7 years, Gray said matter-of-factly as he folded his arms in front of him. Not to mention, now that Noah is back, with Noah's strength, not to mention the other magic shooters, even the Lamia scale Della might not be able to catch up to Noah in 7 years, right? That's right. Wendy nodded repeatedly, trying her best to agree. If it's Big Brother Noah, he will definitely not lose to anyone. I think so too, Lysana agreed without hesitation. If it's Big Brother Noah, then even if someone has 7 years to chase after him, I don't know if anyone can catch up to him. Allah, I think so too. Mira smiled sweetly. No matter what, Noah won't lose. Although the other members who had personally witnessed Noah's strength in the battle against Achenorlia didn't express any opinions, it was clear that they had the same thoughts. Only Mikao, Wakaba, and the other members who had been in the guild for the past 7 years expressed their opinions. They had never seen Noah display such strength before. Naive. You're really too naive. Mikao shook his head. You don't know, but Dulla is no longer the weakest of the 10 great magisters from 7 years ago. That's right, Wakaba agreed. In these 7 years, Dulla has become the 5th great magisters of the 10 great magisters. His ranking is even higher than the chairman's. 5th place. Lucy was surprised. Doesn't that mean that in this continent, only the top 4 great magisters of the 10 great magisters are stronger than Sir Dulla? The 10 great magisters are only the 10 most outstanding magisters on the continent. There are definitely magisters who have the strength to become one of the 10 great magisters, but they can't because of their style, Elusha said solemnly. However, since he's ranked 5th, it means that Dulla might be stronger than the chairman. Everyone immediately fell silent. Didn't that mean that this time, Fairy Tale would be facing an existence even stronger than Makarov, who was one of the 10 great Saint Magi? That kind of thing doesn't matter at all. Naz suddenly stood on a table and grinned. No matter who the opponent is, if they want to stop us from becoming the #1 magisters in the Fiori Kingdom, we'll just send them flying. That one sentence swept away the heaviness in everyone's hearts. All right, there's no point in discussing who's stronger and who's weaker. Noah smiled and concluded, we'll only know the result after we fight. Everyone nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Makarov smiled in relief, but then he quickly stopped smiling and said, don't worry about it. As for the second news, I've decided that after the Great Magisters Tournament ends, I'll give up my position as the chairman. Noah will become the 5th chairman of Fairy Tale. This time, the entire guild was in an uproar. Congratulations, Noah. Gray patted Noah's shoulder. You're finally going to be the chairman. Congratulations. Congratulations. Remember to treat us when the time comes. The group of friends all gathered around Noah and gave him their blessings one by one. After all, as early as 7 years ago, Noah's position as the chairman had already been decided. They were just waiting for Makarov to step down. Therefore, Makarov's announcement went with the flow and did not cause a huge commotion among the crowd. Looking at his friends around him, Noah suddenly smiled. Then, I'll also announce something to everyone. After saying that, Noah extended his hand and pulled Mira and Lysana out of the crowd, hugging them in his arms. After the Great Magisters Tournament ends, Mira, Lysana, and I will officially get married. After saying this, the entire guild suddenly went silent. Get married? In the next second, cries of surprise resounded throughout the entire space, causing the buildings in the guild to tremble. Is this for real? No, no way. Doesn't that mean that Noah, Mira, and Lysana are really going to get married? Damn it, I'm so envious. The group of friends immediately went into an uproar. And amidst the commotion, Mira and Lysana's pretty face blushed slightly, but their faces were filled with bliss. Nestling in Noah's arms, they silently confirmed this matter. Wah 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 wah. Wendy was flustered and did not know what to do. Something big suddenly happened. Hee. Xiao Lulu, on the other hand, was extremely happy. That male finally decided to get married. That's great. This time, Wendy can completely give up on him. This is too shocking. Lucy patted her full chest. But, thinking about it carefully, the three of them were already engaged 7 years ago. It's natural for them to get married now, right? Get married. Get married. Alusha's face was stiff, and no one knew what she was thinking. Her face turned red and even emitted smoke as if she had crashed. I'm not mentally prepared yet. That's not right. Gray ridiculed. You're not the one getting married. Alusha, why are you mentally prepared? Get married? A question mark appeared above Naz's head, and then he said this sentence without thinking. That kind of thing doesn't matter. Hurry up and tell us the name list for the competition. Silence. A deathly silence ensued. Everyone stopped talking for no reason, and then all of them cast a dangerous look at Naz. Naz couldn't help but take a step back. His whole body trembled, and his face was filled with horror. What are you doing? Stinky Flame, you said something that you shouldn't have said. Gray's smile was unprecedentedly bright, and then his expression changed. Beat him up for me. Everyone present rushed towards Naz without any hesitation. Thus, Naz's screams rang out along with the crackling sounds of explosive strikes. Chapter 1645. Pump. Naz, whose face was bruised and swollen, fell heavily to the ground. There were still several large bumps on his head. His eyes rolled around as he groaned half dead. Why, this thick-skinned guy didn't know why he provoked public anger. In the end, it was Lysana who angrily threw down a sentence. Naz, you definitely won't be able to find a bride in the future. At this moment, no one objected to Lysana's words. Everyone nodded and expressed their agreement. Even Habe, who was flying in the air, spread out his hands and said helplessly, This is Naz. To be able to use such a sentence to explain all the problems, one could imagine how despairing Naz's thick brain had become. Therefore, even Makarov, who was about to announce the official matters, turned a blind eye to the scene of everyone scolding Naz. When it was over, he cracked open his mouth and laughed. This way, if we win the Great Demon Battle Exhibition and become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, then it will be 3 consecutive good things. The first good thing was that Noah became the leader of Fairy Tale. The second good thing was that Noah, Mira, and Lisanna officially got married. The third good thing was that Fairy Tale became the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom. If this wasn't the 3 blessings, then what was? What a pity. Makarov shook his head regretfully. If I could have a great-grandson, that would be even more perfect. His words caused Mira and Lisanna's faces to turn red. Everyone else also looked at Noah with ridicule in their eyes. Noah's face was full of awkwardness as he quickly changed the topic. So, grandfather, have the members of the 2 teams been decided? That's right. Makarov nodded and began to announce. Then, let's first announce the members of Fairy Tale A team. Makarov extended a hand and pointed to the side. Suddenly, a projection screen flashed next to Makarov. On the screen, the names of 5 people were displayed. Nazdo Lagner, Gray Forrestal, Elusha Shukalito, Lucy Hatfilia, Winnie Mabel. The 5 above are the members of Fairy Tale A team. Makarov said. In addition, each team can have a substitute member. That's not urgent. We'll decide who's going to play next. Hearing Makarov's words and looking at the names displayed on the screen, everyone began to talk. That's great. Naz immediately jumped up and revived with full health. Humph. Gray's eyes, his eyes were also filled with excitement. In the end, Fairy Tale A team is our usual team. Elusa smiled leisurely. Only Lucy and Winnie started to panic. It can't be. Let me play. I can't do it. No wonder Lucy and Winnie were so flustered. Originally, 7 years ago, the 2 girls weren't any powerful magic shooters in the guild. Now, 7 years have passed. Even if they have been practicing for a while, with Lucy and Winnie's strength, they still don't know if they can keep up with the pace of this era. In that case, instead of letting Lucy and Winnie participate, it would be better to let the members of the guild who have also been here for 7 years participate. This was Lucy and Winnie's idea. Even Noah frowned slightly and spoke with some hesitation. Grandpa, isn't it better to think about it again? It's not that Noah doesn't trust Lucy and Wendy. Not to mention Lucy for the time being, Wendy is still just a child. Even the Dragon Slayer magic shooters in the sky can only use some auxiliary magic. There are not many who can use magic that can be used for combat. Now, although Noah could feel that Wendy's magic power seemed to have improved a lot, and she was almost catching up with Naz and Gray during the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam, magic power was one thing, and combat power was another. In the past, Winnie has not experienced many serious battles at all. Letting her play like this, Noah is still somewhat worried. However, not knowing if she saw the worry in Noah's heart, Wendy calmed down and a firm expression appeared on her young and cute face. I understand. I'll try my best. Wendy? Noah was surprised. I'm sorry, Brother Noah. I know you will be worried. Wendy clenched her small fists and looked like she was cheering for herself. But I also want to use my actions to tell Brother Noah that I have become stronger. Is that so? Noah muttered to himself. After a while, he touched Wendy's head. Okay, but remember not to force yourself too much. Yes. Wendy nodded her head heavily. Okay. Lucy cheered up at once. Since Wendy has made up her mind, then I have to show my enthusiasm. I will work hard too. Yes, that's right. Elusha immediately agreed. As long as we work together, there will be no problem. Then, let's announce the list of members of Fairy Tale B. Makarov stretched his hand to the other side. These are the 5 members of the B team. After that, another projection screen flashed on the other side of Makarov. On the screen, there were 5 names. Noah Dole, Laxus Dole, Milad Strauss, Gadgeru Wright Fox, Julian Rox. The 5 above are the members of Fairy Tale B. Makarov looked around at everyone below. As for the reserve members of the B team, we will also decide later. Hearing this, everyone turned their gazes and looked at the 5 members of Fairy Tale B. B team? Laxus, who was sitting at the bar, narrowed his eyes slightly. Are they in the same team as Noah? Mira tilted her head and looked satisfied. Are they in the same team as that guy? Gadgeru, who was hiding in the corner, looked in Noah's direction. Julian is in the same team? Julian was more or less surprised. Noah stared at the name list on the screen and nodded silently in his heart. Not to mention himself, whether it was Lax's, Mira, Gadgeru, or Julian, they were all first-class powerhouses in Fairy Tail. Coupled with the members of Fairy Tail, the entire Fairy Tail's strongest group of magic shooters were all listed. With such a lineup, there was no reason why they couldn't stand out in the Great Demonic Combat Arts exhibition. The group of companions was also discussing. Whether it's the A team or B team, they're all quite strong. With such a lineup, they're probably the strongest in our guild, right? However, isn't it better to let two of the Raytheons replace Lucy and Wendy's positions? There's also Elfman and Kana. If they join the team, they should have a better chance of winning, right? From the perspective of teamwork, it's better to have Lucy and Wendy in the A team. After all, they're originally a team. Obviously, everyone had their own opinions. But in the end, everyone believed in Makarov's choice. Then, the announcement of the members ends here. I'll consider the alternate members of the two teams again. Makarov's voice attracted everyone's attention. Tomorrow, we have to go to the venue of the Great Demonic Combat Arts exhibition. So today, the members of each team must remember to be prepared. Target, 30 million. Cough, cough, cough. Before Makarov could finish his sentence, he coughed dryly and spoke in a serious tone. Target, Fiore is first. Someone cheered loudly in the venue. Chapter 1646. Tomorrow, they would go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition. After making such a decision, Makarov dismissed everyone and began to prepare. Because in addition to Team A and Team B, the rest of the members would also go to the venue to cheer for everyone. Therefore, this event could be said to be an event of the entire guild. Of course, originally, there should be more or less a few people left to look after the guild, but except for the main members who came back from Celestial Wolf Island, the rest of the members objected loudly. That was natural. Last time, after a group of main members left, they did not return to the guild and disappeared for a whole 7 years. This time, no matter what, the members who had guarded the guild for 7 years were not willing to stay in the guild and watched everyone leave. Once bitten, twice shy. Obviously, there was still some uneasiness in the hearts of those companions, and they were somewhat sensitive to the departure of the main members. In view of this, Makarov simply announced that from tomorrow until the end of the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition, the guild would suspend business and would not accept any commissions. As for the members of the guild, they would all go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition to cheer for the contestants. Anyway, even if they continued to operate with the current situation of the guild, there would not be many commissions. Since that was the case, they might as well stop business and wait until they won the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition and gained both fame and fortune. At that time, it would not be too late to open for business. In this way, the group of members left the guild in the evening. Night gradually fell. On a dim path, when he was walking here alone. This was a very rare thing, because if it was a normal day, Xia Lulu would definitely be by Wendy's side. Just like Naz and Hubby were inseparable partners, Wendy and Xia Lulu were also inseparable best friends. However, today, Wendy sneaked out alone after Xia Lulu fell asleep. Following the dim path, Wendy came to the riverbank. Phew, standing on the edge of the riverbank, Wendy took a deep breath of the cold air and smiled. Sure enough, the night air is delicious. As a dragon slayer sorcerer, Wendy could recover her mana and stamina by eating substances of the same attribute. For Wendy, who had learned the dragon slayer magic of the sky, air was the best nutrition package. What Wendy liked most was the morning and night air. The morning air was very fresh. For Wendy, that kind of air was equivalent to fresh milk. The night air was a little cool. To Wendy, that kind of air was like a frozen cold drink. No matter which one it was the smell that Wendy liked. However, Wendy rarely ran out in the middle of the night like this to taste the night air. The main reason was that Wendy was timid to begin with, and Xia Lulu was overprotective of her. Running around alone in the middle of the night was something that she rarely did in the past. But today was special. As she breathed in the cold air, Wendy pressed her chest and muttered softly, "I'm still a little uneasy." That was why Wendy ran out alone. Tomorrow, Fairy Tale would go to the venue of the Great Magic Battle Exhibition and compete with various famous guilds from all over the kingdom for the title of #1. As a member of one of the 2 teams sent out by Fairy Tale, Wendy's heart was still somewhat uneasy. Me, can I do it? It was no wonder that Wendy was so unconfident. Just as Noah thought, not long ago, Wendy was just a novice sorcerer who could use some support magic. It was difficult for her to use many combat magic. Compared to the other members of the guild, she could be said to be the weakest. Although her mana has increased a lot now, compared to me, Brother Elfman, Sister Kana, and the people from Thor Castle, she is definitely more suitable to go on stage. Whether it was Freed, Bikesrow, Barglin, or Elfman and Kana from Thor Castle, they were all former first-line members of Fairy Tale. In Fairy Tale, the only people who could definitely surpass these people were those S-rank sorcerers. Apart from the S-rank sorcerers, even the former Naz and Gray found it difficult to say that they could definitely defeat these people. Therefore, compared to Wendy, these people were undoubtedly more suitable to go on stage. Of course, it was said that only those S-rank sorcerers could definitely surpass these people, but Noah was an exception. After all, even if Brother Noah is not an S-rank sorcerer, he is still very powerful. The more Wendy thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Is it really okay for me to go on stage with such a Brother Noah in the competition? As soon as her voice fell, a somewhat helpless voice sounded behind Wendy. "I was wondering what you were doing here alone. So you were thinking about such things?" When the familiar voice sounded, Wendy was suddenly startled. However, before she could turn her head, a warm, big hand was placed on Wendy's small head and gently stroked it. "Really, undoubtedly, you were so confident during the day, but now you're hiding here alone and saying such things. It's really worrying." The familiar voice, the familiar smell, and the familiar way of stroking made Wendy's uneasy heart start to calm down little by little. Brother Noah. Wendy didn't need to turn her head to know who it was. "Why are you here?" Well, this question. Noah was also standing by the riverbank, stroking Wendy's head while looking around and saying such a sentence. "Do you want to hear the truth? Or do you want to hear lies?" "Truth? Lies?" Wendy was startled and looked suspiciously at Noah. Brother Noah also knows how to lie? No. It should be said that if I say that I don't know how to lie, then I'll be suspected, right? Noah laughed and said, "Everyone knows how to lie. It's something that can be understood without learning. Almost all humans know how to lie, and I am no exception. It's just that there's no need to, but if there's a need, I'll also lie. But I know." Wendy tilted her head and revealed a cute smile. "Brother Noah has never lied to me." "Oh, you." Noah patted Wendy's head lovingly and said, "Actually, I was a little worried about your situation, so I wanted to check on you. In the end, I found out that you weren't in the dormitory, but ran out." After joining Fairy Tale, Wendy moved into the female dormitory. Therefore, Noah only needed to ask a few of the guild's girls to check on the situation of Wendy's room, and he would immediately know that Wendy was not in the dormitory. After that, Noah began to look for Wendy's whereabouts and found her here. "Now, it seems that my worries were not unfounded," Noah said as he looked at Wendy. "Hey, Wendy, tell me honestly, are you forcing yourself?" Noah was most worried that Wendy was forcing herself. This girl's nature was extremely kind and pure. As long as it was for the guild, even if it was beyond her ability, this petite girl would still stand up and help the guild, right? Noah was worried that Wendy would not disappoint everyone's expectations and hopes. In order to let the guild become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom again, she would disregard her own wishes and force herself to stand up. If you're really forcing yourself, then Wendy, I won't allow you to participate in the competition. Noah said very seriously. I hope that you can be honest with me. Brother Noah, I'm really not forcing myself, Wendy said hurriedly. Then, she hesitated for a moment and said uneasily, I'm just worried that I don't have the ability to fulfill everyone's wishes and not disappoint everyone's expectations. Is that so? Noah's expression softened, and he could not help but laugh. Indeed, it's very similar to your worries. Don't make fun of me, Brother Noah, Wendy protested in a small voice, her face pained. I'm really worried that I won't be able to do it. Noah muttered to himself. Chapter 1647. Noah finally understood the uneasiness in Wendy's heart. To put it simply, Wendy was not confident in her own strength. The Great Magic Battle Exhibition was a battle between the major guilds in the entire Fiori Kingdom. All kinds of magic shooters would appear. Among them, there were definitely some who were stronger than Alusha, Mira, and even Laxus. For example, Dulla of the Lamia scale had risen to 5th place in the 10 Great Saint Magi in 7 years. Her ranking was even higher than Makarov's. In the face of such an opponent, apart from Noah, even Naz, that thick-skinned guy, wouldn't dare to say that he could win, right? Since that was the case, Wendy, who could only use some support magic not long ago, was even more so. Moreover, in the guild, there were people who were stronger than Wendy. It was no wonder that this little girl felt uneasy about participating in the competition. At that moment, Noah turned around and knelt in front of Wendy. He continued to stroke Wendy's head and said, "Then, let me evaluate Wendy's current strength." Wendy's body immediately tensed up. She looked at Noah and nodded with an uneasy expression on her face. Noah acted as if he did not see the uneasiness on Wendy's young and cute face and began to evaluate her. In terms of magic power alone, you've improved a lot compared to before. It's enough to catch up with Naz and Gray when they participated in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. With such magic power, I believe that you can use many of the Sky Element Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned, right? Wendy nodded heavily and confirmed Noah's guess. In fact, with Wendy's current magic, she could even use the Dragon Slayer magic. From this, it could be seen how much Wendy's magic had grown. Of course, if it's just high magic power, it doesn't mean anything. However, the Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned is a lost magic that originated from ancient times. It's extremely powerful. In addition, it also has healing and enhancement effects. It's obvious that it can't be weak, Noah said confidently. Then, the only thing that you're not qualified for now is that you haven't experienced enough actual combat. Combining all the factors, in my opinion, your strength is probably weaker than Naz and Gray when they were in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. Noah looked directly at Wendy. With such strength in the previous guild, it was enough to stand on the first line. But that was the previous guild, wasn't it? Wendy couldn't help but say, "Now, 7 years have passed, everyone in the guild has improved a lot. They are much stronger than me now. But, Wendy, it's wrong to only judge the role of strength," Noah retorted. "Let's not talk about the individual battle for the time being. But in the team battle, with a supportive member like you who has healing and support magic, how much effect can be exerted? You know best, don't you?" What if it's not a team battle, but an individual battle? When he seemed to be a little stubborn. If it's an individual battle, then won't I be holding everyone back? Why do you have the idea that you will hold everyone back in an individual battle? Noah laughed. Indeed, in today's guild, there are many magic shooters who are stronger than you, but in other guilds, it may not be so. You have always compared yourself to your companions in the guild, and compared yourself to those powerful people in famous guilds, but in other guilds, there are members who are weaker than you. Noah looked at Wendy with a gentle gaze. "You have to believe in your magic, Wendy." "Believe in my magic?" Wendy was stunned. Looking at Wendy like this, Noah reached out and held one of Wendy's small hands. "No matter what kind of magic it is, you have to believe in it." Noah looked into Wendy's eyes and said this. "After all, that's the magic that Grandine taught you, the magic that your mother taught you. Believe in it. That's what you should do." Noah's words were like a ray of sunlight shining into Wendy's heart, dispelling all the uneasiness and darkness in Wendy's heart. Seeing Wendy's expression suddenly become cheerful, Noah couldn't help but smile. "It seems that you have finally seen the light." "Thank you, big brother Noah." Wendy reached out her other hand and held Noah's hand that was tightly holding hers. her eyes curved into a crescent moon shape. Big Brother Noah is really an amazing person. You just said some self-righteous words to yourself. Noah rubbed Wendy's small head. There's nothing amazing about it. Wendy didn't say anything else and just enjoyed Noah's head rubbing. After a while, she suddenly stuttered. That, Big Brother Noah, do you really intend to marry Sister Mira and Sister Lysena? That's right, Noah said strangely. What's wrong? No, nothing. Wendy was still stammering. Then, she suddenly became depressed. But if that's the case, what should I do? Noah looked like a monk scratching his head in confusion. What do you mean by what should you do? Wendy was speechless. But, after a while, Wendy took a deep breath and looked at Noah seriously. Big Brother Noah, do you remember when I asked you if you would have a third fiancé? Noah was speechless. Of course, Noah remembered this. It happened when he was reunited with Wendy. At that time, Wendy asked Noah if there was a possibility of a third fiancé, since he had two fiancées. He still remembered that Noah's answer at that time was no. Could it be that because of this, when he felt that he didn't deserve Mira and Lysena? Just as Noah couldn't help but think of this, Wendy's young and cute face turned red for no reason. In the next second, Wendy shouted, as if she had thrown caution to the wind. Big Brother Noah. Noah, who was letting his imagination run wild, was startled by the sudden shout. He couldn't help but take a few steps back and raise his voice nervously. What's wrong? I. Wendy's face was red and her eyes were tightly shut. She shouted as if she didn't shock him to death. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé. Wendy's shout directly turned into an echo that reverberated over the entire riverbank. It also reverberated in Noah's ears, causing Noah to be stunned. The whole place fell into a dead silence. After an unknown amount of time, Noah let out a cry that sounded like he had gone off the line. So that's why. Wendy's head began to smoke. She resisted the dizziness and shouted in despair. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé and marry Big Brother Noah. Noah's brain short-circuited. What's going on? How did this happen all of a sudden? Could it be that there was a mistake somewhere? At this moment, Noah suddenly had a feeling that the world was playing a joke on him. Looking at Noah's stiff expression, the red on Wendy's face began to fade and tears began to accumulate in her eyes. Can't I? Looking at Wendy, who was about to cry, Noah's heart was filled with an extremely strong sense of guilt. Driven by the sense of guilt, Noah almost subconsciously opened his mouth. But you're still young. At least wait until you grow up. After saying that, Noah came to his senses. He even had the urge to die. On the contrary, Wendy's pair of eyes bloomed with unprecedented vigor and her beautiful face became red again. Then it settled. Wendy said extremely shyly, When I grow up, Big Brother Noah must marry me as his fiancé. You can't lie to me. Leaving this sentence, Wendy finally couldn't help but be shy. She turned her head and directly ran out of sight. Noah could only stare blankly at the direction Wendy ran in and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 1648. In the end, after parting with Wendy, Noah returned to the guild without any memory of it and returned to his room. Lying on the bed, Noah recalled Wendy's blushing face and could not help but laugh bitterly. Just kidding. Looks like it's not like that. Or rather, in Noah's memory, Wendy was not a child who would make such a joke. It's just pure longing. It's not like that either. When a child told an adult that he must marry her as his bride when he grew up, anyone would think that it was just a child's talk. Unfortunately, Wendy was no longer a child of that age. Compared to Noah, Wendy was younger, but not by much. After all, Noah was only about to turn 20, while Wendy was about to turn 15. A 5-year gap was not big, but it was not small either. A girl who was about to turn 15 would not be so innocent as to casually say that she wanted to be someone's bride. From Wendy's shy expression, it could be seen that this girl knew what she meant. In other words, I was confessed to by a child who is almost 5 years younger than me. At this point, Noah's expression was extremely strange, and there was even a hint that he could not bear to look at it. The worst thing is that I said those words. At that time, Noah still remembered that this was how he responded to Wendy's confession. At least wait until you grow up. Thinking of this, Noah could not help but want to cover his face. I feel so ashamed that I want to die. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah felt an extremely intense gaze on him, causing his body to stiffen. He slowly turned his head and looked at the side of the bed. He saw that at the side of the bed, there were two petite girls with silvery white hair that was as soft as the moonlight. One of them stared at Noah without moving her gaze away, while the other had a smile that was not a smile, looking very happy. The one who stared at Noah was the girl with long hair that reached her waist. Moreover, the other party's gaze was somewhat sharp, causing Noah to feel a slight prickling pain on his skin. Under the girl's intense gaze, Noah's face was unnatural. Why did you come out? Silence. No one answered Noah's question. It was precisely because of this that Noah felt even more uncomfortable. After a while, Athena showed a carefree smile. Since ancient times, it has always been the privilege of pure young girls to offer their longing and love to heroes. From this point of view, my fated one, you have the potential to become a hero. In one sentence, Noah completely understood. The two elf girls clearly saw what had just happened. The corners of Noah's mouth twitched. Under such circumstances, Aster continued to stare fixedly at Noah. His face did not reveal the slightest trace of emotion, but this caused Noah to feel a sense of dread. Noah could only reply cautiously. Aster? Aster ignored Noah and continued to stare silently at Noah, giving Noah a lot of pressure. All right, Sacred Sword Fairy, Athena said in a bored tone. No matter what, that person is still your master. Your attitude is a little too disrespectful. I don't need you to remind me, Divine Sword Fairy. Aster finally spoke, but although his voice was unusually sweet, there was a hint of boldness. I am Master's sword. Everything will go according to Master's wishes. At this point, Aster stared at Noah again. Undoubtedly, I also have the right to become Master's possession. When he said this, Aster's voice began to carry some emotion. Thus, Noah understood. Aster, you're at odds. Obviously, the matter of Wendy wanting to become Noah's bride had caused this jealous elf girl to explode. Undoubtedly, when Mira and Lysana were together, they did not display such feelings. Why was it different when it came to Wendy? Also, when it came to existences like Lestia and Pest, Aster would also display an unusual competitive mentality. On the other hand, Aster did not care about characters like Luo Hao at all. What kind of logic was this? Could it be that Ace had a habit of only looking at girls who were about the same age as him? Noah was speechless and could only ask, what's the matter with possession? Didn't that dragon girl say that she wanted to become Master's bride? Aster said as if it was a matter of fact. According to my memory, in human customs, that means that a woman wants to become a man's possession. Is that wrong? No, although there are some parts that are not wrong. There are some that are ridiculously wrong, Noah ridiculed. Furthermore, Aster, didn't you become my possession long ago? Aster immediately went silent. After a while, Aster expressionlessly spoke. I forgot. Noah's body lost all strength, and he collapsed on the bed, unable to get up again. On the other hand, Aster seemed to have only just recalled this matter, and his expression suddenly became cheerful. Right? I'm already Master's possession. Therefore, even if that dragon girl wants to become Master's possession, she can only be beneath me. Noah really wanted to tell Aster that the two of them were not the same. However, when he saw Aster's mysterious eyes surging with excitement, Noah decided to keep his mouth shut and let Aster's imagination run wild. Athena pouted at Noah's reaction. You've really been working hard. Lying on the bed, Noah couldn't help but sigh. Who could he blame for this? Athena had been looking at Noah's direction. Her cold and bewitching snake-like eyes flickered. Seems like you've sorted out your emotions. Noah raised an eyebrow at the words that came out of nowhere. Then, he understood what was going on. I see. So, this is the reason why you two didn't come out all this time? Ever since they came out from the world between and entered this world, Aster and Athena hadn't transformed into human form for 2 whole months. If Noah didn't take the initiative to talk to them, They wouldn't even talk to Noah. At first, Noah felt that it was a little strange, but now it seemed like it was Aster and Athena's thoughtfulness. Even if it's you, suddenly taking on the responsibility of saving thousands of worlds and knowing your unusual origin, you would feel confused too, right? Athena said nonchalantly, I just felt that you should have some time to sort out your emotions, so I'm observing from the side. I was just hindered by this divine sword elf. Aster looked straight at Noah. I want to come out earlier to accompany Master. The rational and emotional words of the two elves warmed Noah's heart, and he couldn't help but smile. I'm sorry for making you two worry. Yes. Aster nodded and said resolutely, I'm Master's sword, so please take care of yourself, Master. No matter what, you're still the master we serve, Athena said as she gazed out the window at the beautiful night sky. Let's not talk about the divine sword elf. Other than being your contracted elf, I'm also your power. If something happens to you, I won't be able to live either, right? It's the same for me, Aster refuted Athena, then lowered his head and said softly, Only Master can use me. If Master is no longer around, then seeing Aster's expression turning sorrowful, Noah reached out his hand and stroked Aster's head. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Aster nodded, and the sadness on his face faded away. Noah looked at Aster, who was obediently standing in front of him, and then at Athena, who was looking at the night sky outside the window. He silently made up his mind. Even if it was just for the two elves who couldn't bear to lose him, he had to overcome the difficulties and win in the end. Even if his opponent was an extraordinary existence, it would still be the same. Chapter 1649. Crocus. It was the most prosperous city in the Fiori Kingdom. Unlike Magnolia, this city was widely known as the City of Flowers, because there were all kinds of beautiful and delicate flowers blooming all year round. It could be said to be a beautiful city famous for flowers. Entering the city, the first thing people saw was often the flowers blooming in every corner of every street. On the streets surrounded by all kinds of flowers, the phenomenon of people coming and going was very common. Amidst the sea of people on the streets, some of them even exuded a mysterious aura that was hard to detect. That was magic. In this bustling city of flowers, archmages could be seen everywhere. There were two reasons for such a grand occasion. One, this city called Crocus was the capital of the Fiori Kingdom. In other words, this was the location of the palace of the Fiori Kingdom, and it was also the city where the king and the nobles lived. Of course, as the center of the Fiori Kingdom, there was no reason for Crocus not to be bustling, and this was also part of the reason why archmages gathered here. 2. The annual Great Demonic Battle Tournament that determined the ranking of the various guilds in the Fiori Kingdom was held in this city. This was the real reason why archmages could be seen everywhere on streets. There was only one day before the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Tomorrow would be the day when the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Therefore, archmages from various guilds in the kingdom began to gather in this city, including Fairy Tale. Finally, Naz, whose face was ashen, fell directly in the middle of the street. There was no other reason, it was just because he was carsick. Ugh! Gadjaloo, who was carrying a luggage, also fell down, his face as ugly as Naz's. Looking at Naz and Gadjaloo, who fell neatly on the street, Lucy was puzzled. It's fine if it's Naz, but why is Gadjaloo also carsick? This was also the question of the others. Therefore, everyone's attention was focused on Julian. As a member of the same guild as Gadjaloo and a member of Fairy Tale, no one knew Gadjaloo better than Julian. Jubian doesn't know either. Noticing that his companions were looking at him, Jubian quickly waved his hand and shook his head. There was no such problem in the past. Really? Alusha frowned slightly. Then what is going on? For the time being, someone has helped Brother Naz and Brother Gadjaloo to cast a spell that can heal their sense of balance, Wendy said weakly. However, there's a limit to the duration of magic. Furthermore, if I keep using it, the duration will become shorter and shorter. There's nothing I can do about it. Could it be a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? Gray mentioned in a seemingly bored manner. Aren't those two dragon-slaying archmages? Speaking of which, Freed looked at Laxus. Laxus seems to get carsick too, right? Yeah. The group of companions suddenly turned their surprised eyes to Laxus. Freed. Laxus glared at Freed. Don't say anything unnecessary. In other words, Freed's words were just unnecessary and not false. It can't be, right? Gray himself was surprised. Is it really a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy doesn't seem to. Mira tilted her head. Isn't Wendy also a Dragon Slayer archmage? What? Do you suspect that Wendy is not a Dragon Slayer archmage? Xiaolulu immediately bared her teeth and defended her. Don't look down on others. Xiaolulu, no one said that. Ha! Bai quickly tried to please her. Maybe Wendy secretly helped herself to use magic to heal her sense of balance. No, I didn't do that. Wendy shook her head. Similarly, I don't have any symptoms of motion sickness. All of a sudden, everyone fell into a dilemma again. Looking at the group of companions who were in a dilemma because of Naz and Gadgelu's problems, Noah couldn't help but feel at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that Naz, Gadgelu, and even Laxus all had the common problem of motion sickness. This was an unexpected weakness. Is it really a common problem among Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy seems to be fine. Thinking of this, Noah glanced in Wendy's direction. Coincidentally, Wendy also secretly looked at Noah and suddenly met Noah's gaze. Suddenly, Wendy's pretty face turned red and she lowered her head shyly. Obviously, what happened last night was also a big challenge for the pure, kind, and timid Wendy. I wonder when Wendy will be able to return to her usual appearance? Otherwise, wouldn't it be difficult for Noah to even talk to Wendy? At this time, Makarov came from the other end of the street with the rest of the members. Okay, the registration is over. Makarov looked around at everyone. Now we just have to wait for the Great Demon Wars to officially start. Is it over just like that? Noah stepped forward and asked. Nothing else needs to be done? Right? The officials didn't make any announcements. They just told us to pay attention to one thing. Makarov raised a finger. Before 12 o'clock in the morning, the contestants who need to participate in the Great Demon Wars must stay in the designated hotel. Designated hotel. Alusha also stepped forward. In other words, the residences of the contestants and guild members will be separated? That's right. Makarov took out 2 small pieces of paper and handed them to Noah and Alusha. These are the designated hotels for your A and B teams. Before 12 o'clock in the morning, you must all stay there, understood? Noah and Alusha both nodded, took the small pieces of paper with the addresses, and returned to the team. Then, you guys are free to arrange the rest of the time. Makarov's expression relaxed, and he said in a casual manner, as long as you reach the designated location before 12 o'clock in the morning, that's fine. The members of the guild immediately beamed with joy. Among the people present, there were less than 10 who had been to Crocus before. Naturally, it wasn't that they weren't interested in the famous City of Flowers. Thus, everyone gathered in groups of 2s and 3s and dispersed to various corners of the city to have fun. I'll go take a look at the hotel first. Alusha looked at Noah and smiled. Good luck, Noah. You too. Noah returned a smile. Don't get into trouble. Don't worry. Alusha nodded, turned around, and left swiftly. I'll go take a look at the hotel with Lee Senna, Mira said to Noah. Noah, go play by yourself. Okay. Noah replied helplessly, making Mira and Lee Senna burst into laughter. Then they left together. In the blink of an eye, everyone left and scattered. Even Naz and Gadgelu, who had collapsed on the street, were dragged away. In the end, only 2 people and 1 cat remained at the scene. One was Noah, the other was Wendy. The remaining cat was naturally Xiaolulu. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. Wendy stole a glance at Noah, her pretty face blushing slightly. She lowered her head and shyly looked at her fingers. Noah scratched his cheek and laughed dryly. Looking at Noah and Wendy, Xiaolulu furrowed her brows and said coldly, What are you doing? Did the 2 of you do something behind my back? This sentence made Noah and Wendy feel guilty. Seeing this, Xiao Lulu's eyes became extremely sinister. Feeling that he would be interrogated if this continued, Noah quickly changed the topic and said to Wendy, "Wendy, how about we go for a walk too?" And Wendy nodded repeatedly. The two of them immediately gathered together and hurried forward. "Wait." Xiao Lulu was shocked and chased after them in exasperation. "Don't think about leaving me behind." Thus, Noah, Wendy, and Xiao Lulu went far away together. Noah noticed, on the roof of a building far away from the street, a small black shadow had been looking down, opening its mouth and laughing. Chapter 1650. Hey, what exactly did you guys do behind my back? Hurry up and tell me. That male over there. Don't tell me you really did something to Wendy. Wendy, tell me honestly, what exactly happened between the two of you? Did you guys hear what I said? On one of the streets in Coloches, Xiao Lulu, who had a pair of white wings on her back, asked frantically while flying. Noah and Wendy, who were walking in front, couldn't help but cover their ears in annoyance. However, Xiao Lulu acted as if she didn't notice anything. She just kept asking questions. Finally, when he couldn't take it anymore, "Xiao Lulu," Wendy said in a pleasant tone, "I told you, there's really nothing going on. Do you think you can hide it from me?" Xiao Lulu didn't bite at all. If nothing happened, why would the atmosphere between the two of you be so weird? I say, just because the atmosphere is weird, doesn't mean that you guys did something wrong. Noah couldn't help but interrupt. Maybe I saw Wendy accidentally when she was changing her clothes? Wendy cried out in surprise, her pretty face turning red. "What did you say?" Xiao Lulu's eyes widened. Then, she pounced on Noah's face crazily. "I'll scratch you to death, you evil male." After saying that, Xiao Lulu's pair of hands really stretched out a few sharp claws. Without saying anything, she scratched at Noah's face. Presumably, being scratched by those claws, even if his skin and flesh didn't split open, there would at least be a few ugly red marks on his face. Noah was taken aback. He reflexively reached out his hand and slapped him. Slap! With a crisp sound, Xiao Lulu let out a mournful cry as she was sent flying. Seeing that Xiao Lulu was about to fly out, Wendy was shocked. She raised her hand and caught Xiao Lulu with much difficulty. She hugged Xiao Lulu and heaved a sigh of relief. Ugh! Xiao Lulu's eyes began to turn, but she was still extremely unwilling to admit defeat. "Wendy, did you see that? This violent male is not worthy of your love." "No, there's no such thing," Wendy retorted without any hesitation. "Big Brother Noah is very gentle. He is not violent at all. You only know how to speak up for that male." Xiao Lulu glared at Noah. This guy already has 2 fiancées, and he's about to get married, yet he still came to provoke you. Not only is he violent, he's also a playboy. "You can't say that about Big Brother Noah, Xiao Lulu," Wendy said angrily. "Although Big Brother Noah is indeed a bit of a playboy, if he wasn't, wouldn't I have no chance?" The corner of Noah's eyes twitched. He was speechless. When he seemed to have just realized what she had said, she blushed and became flustered. I didn't mean that. I'm just glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy." No, I'm not glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy. Even if Big Brother Noah is a playboy, I don't mind at all. No, it's not like that either. Noah only felt that his chest was pierced by a few arrows, causing his heart to ache. He hurriedly stopped Wendy from continuing. All right, you don't have to say any more. I understand what you mean." Is that so?" Wendy heaved a huge sigh of relief and patted her chest. "That's good." "Idiot," Xiao Lulu said in exasperation. "If you continue like this, you'll be eaten up by that guy sooner or later." "No, there's no such thing," Wendy retorted weakly. Just like this, Wendy hugged Xiao Lulu, and the two directly entered the stage of quarreling. Noah, who felt that he had been forgotten, could only touch his nose resentfully, but he didn't dare to say anything more. After all, Noah was originally in a disadvantageous position on this topic, and there were 2 brides who were about to be married. No matter how he explained, it would be useless, right? Noah simply lowered his presence and let Wendy and Xiao Lulu quarrel. He laughed and shook his head as he followed behind the person and the cat and continued to walk. It was also at this moment that Noah suddenly felt something. He felt a strong sense of malice. Noah's eyes suddenly froze, and his footsteps became sluggish. He turned his head abruptly and looked to the side. There was a small alley there. Even in the day, the alley was very dark. However, Noah clearly saw a small black shadow darting into the alley and disappearing without a trace. Wendy, who was quarreling with Xia Lulu, felt Noah's abnormality. She turned her head and looked at Noah strangely. "Brother Noah, what's wrong?" "Nothing." Noah stared at the dark alley, not looking at Wendy, and said directly to Wendy, "Sorry, Wendy, I'll leave first. If you don't have anything else to do, remember to go back to the hotel directly. Also, don't wander around where there's no one, okay?" Wendy, who didn't know what happened, was confused, but she still realized something from Noah's expression and nodded obediently. "I know, Brother Noah. I'll go back to the hotel directly. Good girl." Noah patted Wendy's head. Then, he suddenly started running and rushed into a dark alley at the side. Seeing Noah disappear into the alley, Wendy lowered her head and said to Xia Lulu in her arms, "Then, Xia Lulu, let's go back directly. You really listened to that male." Xia Lulu muttered with some dissatisfaction, but didn't object. Although she was unhappy that Wendy kept circling around Noah, but Xia Lulu's intention was for Wendy's good. And just now, Noah obviously noticed something. If Wendy continued to stay here, there was no benefit. So, even if Xia Lulu was unhappy, she wouldn't object. So, Wendy and Xia Lulu walked toward the hotel. On the other side, Noah was moving at an extraordinary speed in the dark alley. Although the ability points were left in between worlds to upgrade, allowing Noah's physical ability to return to the state when he didn't have any ability points, Noah had trained in the deep mountains for a few years. During those years, Noah mainly trained in magic and didn't train his physical ability much. But even so, he was still much stronger than the average person. If the strengthening of the protozoan virus hadn't been absorbed by the authority, I should be even stronger now. Noah stared ahead. But anyway, there's magic to strengthen it, so there's no difference. Just as Noah was about to use magic to strengthen his legs and rush forward to see if he could catch up to something, another presence suddenly approached him. Before Noah could turn around, the air trembled. Immediately, pieces of human-shaped paper suddenly descended from the air and lined up neatly. Like flowing water, they streaked across the air and rushed in the direction of Noah. In the blink of an eye, the neatly arranged pieces of human-shaped paper flew around Noah, and like chains, they wrapped around Noah and tied him up. Clank! Then, the pieces of human-shaped paper that were tightly attached to Noah's body bloomed with a purple light. They were blooming from the strange characters drawn on the pieces of paper. Noah suddenly felt an invisible binding force pass through the pieces of human-shaped paper and onto his body. At that moment, Noah narrowed his eyes and didn't resist. He raised his head and looked at the shadow in front of him. "Come out, you sneaky bastard." The voice spread clearly in the dark alley. Then, a sinister laugh sounded. As expected of a next president of fairy tale, you can still be so calm in this situation. No wonder that old guy Makarov took you in as his adopted grandson. Accompanied by such a sinister laugh, a man slowly walked out from the shadow in front of him. A man in his 30s or 40s, with a black crew cut and an extremely thick black beard. Chapter 1651. Noah frowned as he watched the cold man slowly walk out from the dark corner. For some reason, Noah felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. Noah opened his mouth coldly. "Who are you?" "Oh, you don't know me? Didn't Makarov and Laxes mention me to you?" The cold man pretended to shrug his shoulders. "How cold? No matter what, we can still be considered as a family." Family. Noah's frown deepened as a mocking expression appeared on his face. "Sorry, I don't remember having such a shady family member. My family members are all open and above-board people. They don't have people like you who do sneaky things." The cold man's expression suddenly froze as he looked at Noah with a gloomy gaze. As expected of the successor of that old man, Makarov, even that superior attitude is exactly the same. It's really unpleasant. If it wasn't for the fact that I still want to know some important things from you, I really want to torture you a little. Cut the crap. Noah questioned. Who are you? Then, let me introduce myself. The cold man spread his hands and smiled sinisterly. My name is Ivan Dole. You should understand now, right? Dole. Noah was stunned at first, then his pupils shrank. Noah finally knew why he felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. When he was young, he was just adopted by Makarov. Before he lived in the guild, Noah had seen this man's photo in Makarov and Lax's house. It was a family photo. Of course, the people in the photo were a family. There were a total of 3 people in that family. One was Makarov, who had just entered his old age. The other was Lax's when he was young. The last person was also a man, Makarov's biological son, Lax's biological father. He used to be a member of Fairy Tale, but he did something that harmed the guild. In the end, he was mercilessly kicked out of the guild by Makarov. That man's name was Ivan. Ivan Dorothea. I see. Noah looked at Ivan closely. You are Grandpa's disappointing son? Don't say that, little Noah. Ivan smiled sinisterly. No matter what, I am still your father. Before Ivan could finish his sentence, he was immediately interrupted by Noah. Don't say anything else. Noah looked at Ivan with a sharp glint in his eyes and said with a spurious smile, After all, if I really have a father like you, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist. It could be said that Noah didn't have any good impression of Ivan. It wasn't just because Ivan had done something to endanger the entire fairy tale, but also because of what he had done after being expelled from a guild. After being kicked out of the guild, it was said that Ivan didn't join any other guild, but created his own guild. That guild was called Raventail. It was a dark guild. Originally, the dark guilds that were active in the underground were basically under the Baram Alliance. However, Raventail was independent of the Baram Alliance, hiding alone in the border and secretly developing. Makarov specifically investigated this guild. As a result, although Raventail didn't do anything to kill or set fire, it did do a lot of sneaky things. Just like what Noah said, it was a guild that gathered all kinds of rascals. And Ivan was the leader of these rascals. One could imagine how Noah felt about such a person. If Ivan really shamelessly treated him as his father, then Noah really didn't know what he would do. Perhaps he saw something from Noah's eyes. Ivan couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then he realized that he had a trace of fear towards Noah and became angry out of humiliation. Let's see how long you can maintain your stubbornness. After saying that, Ivan formed a hand seal. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, on the human-shaped paper that tightly bound Noah and stuck to Noah's body, the mysterious characters that were blooming with purple light actually exploded into balls of electric light, causing electric current to suddenly appear and violently run through Noah's body. Following the violent flow of electric current, Noah actually felt a sharp pain, which surprised him. You think I don't know that you have the power to nullify magic? Ivan said proudly. When you annihilated the 6 demon generals, Oration cease. The information about this power of yours had already reached my ears. Otherwise, why would I come to you knowing that magic would be nullified? Not only that, I also know that magic will only be nullified if it's directed at you. Ivan laughed loudly. So, the paper wrapped around you is just an ordinary piece of paper. The words engraved on the paper are magic, and the electric current is ordinary electric current stored by magic. It's not generated by magic. That's why I can harm you, right? In other words, Ivan didn't use magic against Noah from beginning to end. The paper wrapped around Noah's body was just a normal paper, and the characters engraved on it were magic that strengthened the paper's hardness and toughness. The electric current that directly hit Noah's body was also not generated by magic, but normal electric current stored by magic, and now it was just released. This way, the paper could wrap around Noah, and the electric current could also harm Noah. Feeling the pain coming from all over his body, Noah clenched his fist, ignoring the electric current that was violently running through his body, and his sharp eyes looked straight at Ivan. What's your purpose? Hearing this, Ivan maintained the hand seal in his hand and looked at Noah with a cold smile. I only have one purpose, and that is lumen starlight. Noah's pair of eyes suddenly tightened. Seeing Noah's expression clearly, Ivan was ecstatic. You really do know about the existence of lumen starlight. I knew that Makarov would definitely tell you about it. After all, he already announced that you'll be the next president. Chapter 1652. Bang! Amidst the loud explosion, the paper wrapped around Noah's body and the electric current on Noah's body exploded, creating a strong gust of wind that blew towards the surroundings. Dawn! Ivan didn't even have time to react. His entire body was viciously slammed into by the sudden shockwave. With a heavy muffled thud, he flew backwards and slammed heavily into a wall. The double impact from the front and the back directly caused Ivan to spit out all the air in his chest. The vision in front of him was distorted, and he was extremely dizzy. Then, Ivan heard this sentence. What's wrong? Is this all you're left with after being defeated by your little tricks? Ivan raised his head with difficulty and looked ahead. There, Noah was pulling off a piece of paper in the shape of a human that was draped over his shoulder. He looked at Ivan with an extremely calm gaze. However, it was that incomparably calm gaze that caused Ivan's entire face to stiffen. It was only then that Ivan realized. On Noah's body, streaks of electric wiring were fading away bit by bit. Indeed, if you don't use magic directly against me, your little tricks can still be of some use against me. Noah patted the dust off his body and glanced at Ivan. But, at best, it can only be of some use. When will you be able to produce magic that can be of use against me? Ivan's expression changed drastically. At this moment, Ivan recalled a very important matter. That was, even if the power of magic immunity was excluded, the man in front of him was still one of the top magic shooters in Fairy Tale, and even stood at the peak. According to the information that Ivan knew, the man in front of him had many achievements. He killed Joseph, who was once one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters and was on the same level as Makarov. He defeated Jalal, who was also one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters and sneaked into the Old Council in the form of a consciousness. With the power of one person, he annihilated the entire 6 demon generals, Oration Cease. Even Laxus had lost to Noah more than once. Alusha and Mira both claimed that they were no match for him. Kildas claimed that he no longer had the confidence to defeat him. Even Hades, who was closest to the abyss of the demonic path and had comprehended the true meaning of darkness, had been killed by Noah. Not only did the man in front of him have the power to nullify magic, he was also a monster. The fact that magic was effective against him was only because they had the qualifications to make him attack. It was not a reason that they could guarantee victory. You don't even understand such a simple thing, and you dare to make a vow in front of me? Noah looked down at Ivan, who was paralyzed on the ground, and mocked. How did Grandpa give birth to such a stupid guy like you? You? Ivan's face twisted. Since you took the initiative to come to me, don't blame me for being rude, Noah said indifferently. Where did you get the information about lumen starlight? I will ask you myself. Saying such a sentence, Noah's eyes became a little dangerous. No matter what method I use. Wait. Ivan hurriedly raised his hand and shouted loudly. I am Makarov's son, Laxus's father. You can't treat me like this. Is that so? Noah looked at Ivan with a somewhat pitiful gaze. If that's the case, let me tie you up in front of Grandpa and Laxus. Let's see how they will treat you after seeing your ugly appearance. Ivan's eyes widened. When he realized that Noah was not joking, he became furious. You want to tie me up in front of Makarov and Laxus? Don't even think about it. After saying this, Ivan raised 2 fingers, put them together, and formed a hand seal. His whole body fluctuated with magical power. Bang! Almost at the same time, Noah abruptly stomped on the ground. With a heavy stomp, he dashed in front of Ivan. Wah! Ivan was shocked, but at this time, it was too late to react. He saw that Noah suddenly turned around and kicked Ivan's chest heavily. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Ivan was violently kicked out. Friction with the air. He flew directly out of the alley and onto the street. He forcefully smashed into a stall, smashing it into pieces. On the busy street, the crowd of pedestrians was shocked. What? What happened? Fight? Is someone fighting? Don't tell me it's those Magic Guide Guild. Where's the law enforcement team? Hurry up and call the law enforcement team. The pedestrians on the street were in a mess, and they all moved away from the broken stalls by a certain distance, leaving an empty space and entering the spectator mode. Then, Noah slowly walked out of the alley and entered everyone's sight. Suddenly, the crowd started to discuss. Which guild's sorcerer is that? Look, he has a guild's coat of arms. Which guild's coat of arms is that? Seems like I've seen it somewhere. Seems like a small guild that's not very famous. Ignoring the noise around him, Noah directly went in front of the smashed stall. He reached out and dragged Ivan, who was buried in it. At this time, the commotion around them intensified. A team of soldiers wearing standard armor and holding weapons neatly separated the crowd and barged in. The leader was a man who was more muscular than the rest of the soldiers. The armor on his body was also more exquisite. I'm the leader of the Sakura Knights of the Fiori Kingdom's army stationed in Kuroka's, Alcardios. The leader of the Sakura Knights, who called himself Alcardios, stared at Noah with his sharp eyes. Now is the time when the great demonic combat exhibition is about to begin. I've been appointed as the law enforcement team to be responsible for maintaining order on the streets and not let the Magic Guide Guild's dispute endanger the residents of Kurokas. So, can you tell me why you're having a dispute? The kingdom's army... Noah turned his head and looked at Alcardios. Ivan, who was tightly grabbed by Noah by the collar, hurriedly shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army as if he had seen a savior. I'm the leader of the Raven Tail. The sorcerer of the fairy tale ambushed me in order to eliminate a strong opponent in the great demonic combat exhibition. That one sentence caused a commotion among the crowd. Is this for real? How dare he do that? That fairy tale that's always been at the bottom. Is this guild finally starting to resort to unscrupulous means to fight for a place? Not only the surrounding crowd, but even Noah was slightly taken aback by Ivan's words. Soon after, his gaze turned icy cold as he looked at Ivan. So that's how it is. Are you planning to pour dirty water on me and on Fairy Tale? In that instant, a heart-palpitating aura began to rise from Noah's body. Feeling that heart-palpitating aura, Ivan was scared out of his wits. That was because that heart-palpitating aura was mixed with some murderous intent. In other words, Noah wanted to kill Ivan. Save me. Ivan struggled as he shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army. He wants to kill me. He wants to kill me. Instantly, the kingdom's army raised the weapons in their hands and pointed them in the direction of Noah. Let go of the person in your hands. Alcardios took a step forward and spoke loudly to Noah. If you don't accept the warning, I will arrest you for obstructing public order. Arrest me? Noah looked at Alcardios and smiled suddenly, but there was no smile in his eyes. You can come and try. As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of magic rose from Noah's body without any warning, turning into a hurricane and blowing in all directions. Chapter 1653. Amidst the vibrations in the air, a surge of magic power erupted from Noah's body, turning into a raging gale that swept across the surroundings. The crowd could only feel an extremely terrifying pressure rising from Noah's body. Then, one by one, they revealed a horrified expression. The crowd of onlookers stood rooted to the ground with a stiff expression. The soldiers of the royal army gripped their weapons tightly, their hands trembling slightly. Alcardios's pupils contracted bit by bit. As for Ivan, his face was already covered in cold sweat. Under such circumstances, the magic power rising from Noah's body became more and more violent, causing an invisible energy current to sweep across the air. It was as if it had turned into a tangible pressure, violently suppressing the hearts of everyone present. At this moment, no one could open their mouths to speak. It was not that they did not want to speak, but it was as if their entire bodies were tightly bound, and they could not even open their mouths. Thus, on the entire street, a deathly stillness filled the air, making the atmosphere extremely strange. No one knew how long this scene lasted. At a certain moment, the massive magic power that swept across the air like a hurricane suddenly shrank back, retracting bit by bit into Noah's body until it completely disappeared. Then, Noah, who was holding tightly onto Ivan's collar, spoke calmly. "It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously." After saying that, Noah released Ivan, causing Ivan to stumble and fall to the ground. He stared blankly at Noah, unable to react in time, and did not move for a long time. On the other hand, the surrounding crowd seemed to have relaxed as they heaved a huge sigh of relief and panted softly. It was only then that the crowd realized. It turned out that just now, everyone present had subconsciously held their breaths. Captain Alcardios, right? Noah acted as if nothing had happened, and asked as if he was talking to himself. Just now, this little person said that Fairy Tale wanted to exclude Raven Tail, who is a strong opponent in the Great Devil Battle Exhibition. That is to say, Raven Tail also participated in the Great Devil Battle Exhibition, right? I'm not sure. The registration is not over yet. Alcardios was silent for a moment, and then replied in a deep voice. So, the list of participants should not have been submitted to the organizers yet. That's not important. Noah looked at Alcardios. What's important is that Raven Tail is undoubtedly a dark guild, but can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. What's going on? Noah's words caused the crowd of onlookers around them. Dark guild? Is that Raven Tail a dark guild? Seems like I've heard of it. It can't? Dark guilds can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. Under the discussion of the crowd, Alcardios coughed and replied. Indeed, Raven Tail used to be a dark guild, but recently it was recognized by the council and became a regular guild. Therefore, there is no problem for them to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. The crowd of onlookers suddenly understood. However, Noah sneered. But when Raven Tail was still a dark guild, they once caused damage to Fairy Tale. Don't we have a right to take it back from this dark guild? Hearing that, the crowd of onlookers was even more relieved. So it's like that. In other words, Fairy Tale is only fighting against a dark guild that has a grudge with them? That's to be expected, right? But hasn't Raven Tail already become a regular guild? We don't know about this kind of thing, and Fairy Tale also doesn't know about it. So, even if they take action, it wouldn't be strange, right? The crowd's discussion started to go in a direction that was beneficial to Fairy Tale. That was natural. After all, even if Fairy Tale was at the bottom of the list, it was still a proper guild. Even if it had many problems, it had never done anything that would harm the public. On the other hand, even though Raven Tail kept a low profile, it was still a dark guild. Therefore, it was already clear which side the crowd would stand on. Undoubtedly, it was a matter of no avail. Ivan cursed in his heart, and then shouted at the people around him. "Oh no! Everyone, don't listen to this guy. We have never done anything to Fairy Tale." "Is that so?" Noah glanced at Ivan. "Those in the know that you, Ivan Doria, were once a member of Fairy Tale, but because you did something that harmed our guild, you were expelled from the guild by our guild leader. Do you want to deny this matter?" Ivan was speechless. Seeing Ivan like this, the surrounding crowd started to discuss in low voices. "Seems like it's true. In the end, he is still a member of a dark guild. Sure enough, his actions are not clean." All of a sudden, Ivan became the target of public criticism. He was being pointed at by the surrounding residents of Crocus, and his expression was as ugly as it could get. "Guild leader Alcardios, I don't think I need to explain the reason why we had a conflict, right?" Noah shrugged. "What? Fairy Tale wants to eliminate a strong opponent in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition. It's just this villain who is spreading rumors and causing trouble. You are lying." Ivan's face turned red. "Everyone, don't be fooled by him. I'm a victim. He really wanted to kill me just now." "You are right. I really want to kill you." Noah's mouth slowly curved into a cold arc. "I have no mercy for you who has designs on our guild. If there is a chance, I will definitely kill you." The resolute words made Ivan's body tremble, and finally, he shrank back. At this moment, there was only one emotion in Ivan's heart, and that was regret. He regretted that when he knew that Noah was the next guild leader of Fairy Tale, he couldn't help but immediately find trouble with him. However, how could this be blamed on Ivan? The allure of Lumen Starlight was simply too great for the average person. Possessing the Lumen Starlight was equivalent to possessing everything. Using magic that would never be exhausted, whether it was providing magic as a source of energy, selling it, creating great wealth, or developing magic weapons that required a large amount of magic, invading and occupying the continent's territory, and creating great power, it was all within reach. Ivan was not a saint, but a guy whose desire was higher than ordinary people. Knowing that there was such a thing in Fairy Tale, how could he not have designs on it? It could only be said that greed clouded Ivan's mind, so Ivan didn't notice how difficult it was to deal with Noah. Now, the situation has become very unfavorable for Ivan. Understanding this, Ivan gritted his teeth, turned around, directly pushed through the crowd, and left dejectedly. Ivan didn't notice this. Behind him, Noah was staring at his back, his eyes flashing. And Noah also didn't notice this. Behind him, Alcadios was also staring at his back, and there was a thoughtful look in his eyes. In a surrounding crowd, there was another person watching this scene. Looking at Noah, standing in the middle of the crowd, a girl holding a katana tightened her grip on the weapon in her hand and whispered softly. "Is he Noah Dole?" asked Joshua. Chapter 1654. What? In the designated hotel of Fairy Tale B, Makarov stood up from his seat and roared in anger. Ivan, that guy actually did such a thing. Not only Makarov, but even Laxes, who was sitting on the sofa next to him, had a gloomy look on his face as he smacked his lips. That bastard of a dad. Looking at Makarov and Laxes, one with a furious face and the other with a gloomy face, Noah just crossed his arms and didn't say anything. After all, Ivan was Makarov's son and Laxes' father. Regarding Ivan's actions, these two people were the most affected. The rest of the people didn't have the right to interrupt, including Noah. Because of this, among the people present, other than Noah, Mira and Julian also didn't say anything. Only Gadjaloo didn't know how to read the atmosphere at all and directly asked Noah, "But why would the guild leader of Raven Tail look for trouble with you? Don't tell me it's just to find fault with Fairy Tale?" Hearing this, everyone present cast their eyes on Noah. It was no wonder that everyone had this question. After returning to the hotel, although Noah told them that Ivan was looking for trouble with him, he didn't tell them the reason why Ivan was looking for trouble with him. Because it already involved the matter of Lumen Starlight, so it couldn't be said casually. Therefore, Noah just looked at Makarov and sighed. Ivan is because of the thing in the basement. With one sentence, Makarov's face completely changed. The thing in the basement? The rest of the people were confused and could only look at each other. That guy. Makarov's face was uncertain. How did he know about the existence of that thing? I don't know. Noah shook his head. I can only think of one possibility. That is, someone else told him. That can't be. Makarov subconsciously wanted to refute, but then he thought of something. His face sank, and he clenched his fist. Precto? Noah nodded and let Makarov close his eyes. That's right. How did Ivan know about the existence of Lumen Starlight? It could only be Precto, that is, Hades, told him. The only people who knew about the existence of Lumen Starlight were Noah, Mavis, Hades, and Makarov. Since that was the case, among the four people who was the most likely to reveal information about Lumen Starlight, there was no need to guess. No matter what, Hades had already fallen into darkness and was the same as Ivan, the leader of a dark guild. Therefore, it was not impossible for Ivan to obtain information about Lumen Starlight from Hades. Also, according to what I know, Ivan's Raven Tail has already become a formal guild and is also participating in the Great Demon Battle Exhibition this year. Noah said to Makarov, "If he really has designs on that thing, then I feel that we need to be on guard against what Raventail will do during the Great Demon Battle Exhibition." I understand. Makarov took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. I will warn Alusha's side and tell them to be careful not to fall into Raventail's trap. Then, how should we deal with Ivan? Noah went straight to the point. Since he knows about the existence of that thing, if we don't think of a way to deal with him, I think he will definitely continue to pester us. It doesn't matter if he pesters us. Makarov lowered his voice. His voice was filled with anger. But if he plans to pester our family, then I definitely can't sit back and do nothing. Noah naturally agreed. If Ivan only looked for trouble with Noah, then Noah could easily get rid of him. But if Ivan had designs on the entire fairy tale, then Noah would definitely not leave him alone. So, grandfather, I only want to ask a question. Noah looked straight at Makarov. If it is really necessary, can I make a move? Makarov immediately went silent. But in the next second, Makarov spoke without any hesitation. If that Ivan guy really causes harm to the rest of our guild members, then you don't have to spare him on my account. His words without hesitation made everyone fall into silence. Noah just turned his gaze and looked at Laxus. Don't look at me like that. Laxus crossed his arms. His expression didn't even change. You're the guild leader. Since that bastard dad is targeting our guild, how to deal with him is up to you. Noah first looked at Makarov, then looked at Laxus. After seeing that there was no change in their expressions, he nodded. I understand. If necessary, I will personally deal with Ivan. Makarov and Laxus didn't say anything else. Seeing this, although Mira, Julian, and Gadjalou were still somewhat confused, at least they knew that this matter had been discussed. The only thing they didn't understand was one thing. That, Julian said with some unease. The thing in the basement, what is it? I'm sorry. Makarov didn't even open his eyes as he said so. This is the guild's highest secret. Only the guild leader knows. I hope you won't ask anymore. Everyone looked at each other and could only nod their heads. Then, I'll go to Alusha's place. Makarov stood up and looked at the time. It's not long before 12 o'clock. Don't leave the hotel, understand? Understood. Everyone responded. Makarov's expression became slightly better. He turned around and walked out of the hotel. Only Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxus, and Gadjalou were left. The five of them fell into silence. After a while, Mira took a step forward and spoke with a sweet smile that was extremely healing. All right, everyone, let's not think about other things. Now, let's think about how to win in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition. Yes, yes. Julian hurriedly agreed. Besides Raventail, we still have a lot of enemies. Enemies? Gadjalou grinned. I love enemies the most. It's useless to think so much now. Laxus glanced at Noah. It's more practical to think about the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition first. I know what you want to say. Noah couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, I won't lose my composure. Just like what Julian said, we already have a lot of enemies. The Raventail is just a rat hiding in the dark. Before it comes out, we'll just wait and see what happens. Just as Noah's voice fell, a strange phenomenon occurred. Ding-dong, 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 ding-dong. A bell-like sound suddenly reverberated in the entire space, turning into an echo that resounded through the entire sky of Crocus. What's wrong? Mira asked in surprise. What's going on? Everyone look. Julian pointed at the clock in the room. It's already 12 o'clock. Only then did everyone realize that it was already 12 o'clock. Laxus stood up. So there's a reason why we have to stay in the hotel until 12 o'clock? Hey, Gadjalou shouted at everyone. There seems to be something outside. Noah's gaze immediately looked out of the window. In the next second, everyone saw it. In the sky above Coloca's, an extremely large projection abruptly appeared. Yo, greetings, sorcerers from all over the Fiori Kingdom. Before they could see the full appearance of the huge projection, a humorous voice sounded in the entire space. Now, let the preliminaries of the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition begin. Chapter 1655. Qualifiers. The loud voice from the sky stunned Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo. Qualifiers? There were qualifiers for the Great Demon Fights? Why hadn't they heard of it before? It wasn't just Noah's group. At this moment, all the contestants in the various hotels in Coloches had the same question. This was because in the previous Great Demon Fights, there had been no qualifiers. It had always been an official competition. Teams from various guilds from all over the Fiori Kingdom would compete directly in the venue of the Great Demon Fights. Teams would be eliminated according to the outcome of the competition. The guild that remained would be the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom. The previous Great Demon Fights had always been like this. There was no such thing as a qualifier. This naturally caused the contestants from the various guilds to be puzzled. Amidst such doubts, Noah went to the balcony and raised his head to look at the sky. There was a huge three-dimensional image there. It was the image of a short person wearing a gorgeous clown costume with a huge pumpkin head on his head. This person was probably the referee of the Great Demon Fights. Under Noah's gaze, the pumpkin image used a humorous tone and exaggerated actions to explain to everyone in Coloches. I know everyone must have a lot of doubts, but this can't be helped. There are too many teams participating in the Great Demon Fights this year. There are a total of 113 teams. If so many teams were to be squeezed together and compete, it would be difficult to arrange. Therefore, the conference has decided to hold a qualifier this year to eliminate the excess teams. In the end, only 8 teams will be left for the competition. 8 teams? Lax's lips curled up slightly. In other words, teams that can't even pass the qualifiers can't even participate in the official competition, let alone obtain a ranking. It seems like it will be very intense, Julian said uneasily. I really hope we won't have to face so many guilds at once in the qualifiers. Gadjaloo raised his fingers, and a terrifying smile appeared on his face. Isn't it quite interesting? But wouldn't 113 teams be too many? Mira tilted her head and asked doubtfully, Are there so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom? Probably because many guilds are like us and have noticed that the rules don't prohibit multiple teams from participating. Noah narrowed his eyes. So, many of the 113 teams are probably from the same guild. Everyone was enlightened. At this moment, the huge pumpkin image in the sky began to move again. Then, let's introduce the contents of the preliminaries to everyone. The pumpkin projection giggled. The rules are actually very simple. All the contestants will have to participate in the competition race. After saying that, the pumpkin projection pointed in a certain direction. The Great Demon S's, but the pumpkin image didn't give anyone time to react and raised its short hands high. If it's just a normal competition speed, it would be too simple and boring. So, we've prepared a super great stage for everyone. As soon as the pumpkin projection finished speaking, the ground of the entire city of Coloches began to tremble slightly. Noah and the others who were in the hotel immediately started to sway. This was because the entire hotel was shaking as if it had encountered an earthquake. It was shaking nonstop. Then the entire hotel suddenly rose from the ground. It wasn't because the hotel was flying, but because the ground beneath the hotel suddenly rose up and was lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. It wasn't just the hotel that Noah and the others were in. There were quite a few hotels in Coloches. There were more than 100 hotels that were lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 hotels rose to a height of more than 100 meters and became very conspicuous. When the hotels stopped, the tremors began to stop. Noah, who was carrying Mira, finally had the strength to look at the sky. Then his eyes suddenly focused. What? What is that? Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo were all stunned. In the air, behind the gigantic pumpkin image, a gigantic sphere with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters had appeared out of nowhere. The sphere was made up of mechanical steel devices and intersecting corridors that were completely irregular. At first glance, it looked like a city in the shape of a sphere. At the same time, from the gigantic steel sphere, a flight of stairs that was suspended in the air began to extend, all the way to the front of the hotels that had risen into the air. That scene could be said to be extremely dreamy. Without the power of magic, who knew how long it would take for human technology to reach such a level? However, it was precisely because of magic that everything became extremely simple. Everyone, do you see that? That is the stage for the preliminaries that we have prepared for everyone. The gigantic pumpkin image cheerfully explained. The teams of the various guilds must pass through there to find the path to the giant egg, Flatbird, and head to the competition venue. Through this method, the first 8 teams to arrive will be determined to participate in the official competition of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Just like what everyone can see, that is a maze in the air. There is completely no pattern to follow. The pumpkin image explained very passionately. During the competition, each contestant can use magic as they wish, and can also use any method as they wish. Even killing your opponent is not a problem. Of course, the prerequisite is that you bear the responsibility yourselves. We, the Assembly, do not bear any responsibility. We only have 2 requirements for everyone. The pumpkin image extended 2 fingers. First, each team must have 5 people. If one person is missing, even if you reach the finish line, you will be eliminated. Second, you cannot fall out of the maze in the air. Once you fall out of the maze in the air, you will also be eliminated. As long as you comply with the above 2 requirements, please do as you wish. The pumpkin image spread out its hands and declared loudly. Then, I announce that the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition competition has officially begun. After saying that, the pumpkin projection slowly dissipated into the air and completely disappeared. All of Coloches fell silent. Oh. In the next second, loud cheers rang out from the city. Those were the cheers of the citizens who were looking forward to the Great Demon Battle demonstration, as well as the shouts of the various large guilds as they rushed up the floating staircase. However, Noah's group didn't move at all. They just looked at each other. As a result, other than Gadjaloo, the other 4 all smiled. Looks like this qualifier is in our favor. Noah looked at his other 4 companions. Apart from Gadjaloo, all of you should be able to fly, right? Myra Satan's soul had wings. If Julian turned into water, he would be able to get rid of his human body and fly to a certain extent. Rax's was even able to transform into lightning and fly at lightning-like speeds. Only Gadjaloo couldn't fly at all. Gadjaloo. Noah took off the wing-shaped necklace around his neck and tossed it to Gadjaloo. This is for you. What about you? Gadjaloo took the necklace and looked at Noah. Can you fly by yourself? Noah suddenly smiled. The energy in his body began to be released bit by bit. The invisible energy turned into an equally invisible force that allowed Noah's body to float bit by bit. This was a technique that Noah had unintentionally learned in the past 2 months of cultivation. By constantly releasing energy to counteract gravity and pressure, and then turning the energy into thrust, Noah could achieve autonomous flight. All right, Noah looked at the maze in the air. Let's go. Everyone nodded without any objections. Chapter 1656. Giant Egg Flave. It was the most famous arena in the entire Fiori Kingdom. It was located at the border of Crocas, on top of a tall mountain. If one were to look down from above, it would be an ancient Roman arena located on top of a tall mountain. The arena was surrounded by circular and ladder-shaped spectator seats. In the middle of the arena was a vast open space. A few magnificent statues stood around the arena, looking very solemn and ancient. Such an arena was the venue for the annual Great Magic Showdown that would determine the ranking of all the major Magus guilds in the Kingdom of Fiori. There was no better arena than this in the entire Fiori Kingdom. In addition to the annual Great Magic Battle, it was said that not only the major guilds and famous magic shooters, but even the king and members of the parliament would watch this ceremony. In terms of format, it was extremely huge. If one were to appear here, then even the least famous person would be known by the world. Of course, whether it was good or bad fame, it would be spread out. However, It had to be said that as the venue for the annual Great Magic Battle in the entire Fiori Kingdom, there was no better place than here. In such a venue, at a certain moment, a magic circle suddenly rotated in the middle of the open space and bloomed with light. In the light, a door slowly appeared and was pushed open by a hand. Soon after, a few people walked out of the door. They were Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo. "Is this the giant egg-flave bird?" Mira murmured. "The venue for the Great Demon Battle exhibition is here. Why is there no one here?" Gadjaloo looked around and saw that there was no one in the arena and grinned. "Does this mean that we've gotten first place in the qualifiers?" "Well, that's not impossible." Laxes looked around and said matter-of-factly, "After all, it only took us 5 minutes from departure to arrival." 5 minutes. This was the time it took for Fairy Tale Bee to pass the preliminaries. This speed was simply indescribably fast. However, who told the members of Fairy Tale Bee to use the flying method to move around? In the intricate maze in the air, Noah and his group did not waste their energy walking through the corridors. Instead, they directly identified the direction and flew towards the venue. Along the way, the maze in the sky changed shape a few times, completely changing the path inside, and even the directions of up, down, left, and right. It even threw the contestants inside into the air and directly eliminated them. However, it didn't affect Noah and the others who were flying in the right direction. Hence, Noah and his group flew to the end of the maze and found a door. After pushing open the door, they arrived at their destination. The entire process only took 5 minutes. Could it be that he still couldn't get first place in the preliminaries? In fact, no one was too confident in their thoughts. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations to everyone from Fairy Tale for passing the preliminaries. Accompanied by such a humorous voice, a short judge with a pumpkin on his head appeared in front of everyone with wonderful dance steps. According to the contestant list, you all seem to be from the Fairy Tale Bee team, right? Congratulations on getting first place in the preliminaries. Hearing the pumpkin's words, the 5 of them, including Noah, smiled slightly. And at that moment, the magical array rotating on the ground once again bloomed with light, and a door appeared once again. Noah and his group immediately turned their heads and looked in the direction of the door. From the door, 4 men and 1 woman slowly walked out. The 4 men and 1 woman who walked out of the door directly met the eyes of Noah and his group. Immediately after, they were stunned on the spot. You, the leader of the group, a man with short blonde hair, had a serious expression on his face. You are Fairy Tale? Noah and his group also looked at the other party and saw a guild emblem on his body. That's... Julian covered his mouth slightly and softly exclaimed, "That's the coat of arms of the Sabertooth." With one sentence, the entire atmosphere of the scene suddenly became heavy. Hey, Olga said with an extremely unfriendly expression. Why would a trashy guild at the bottom appear in a place like this? Because they passed the preliminaries, everyone. Pumpkin didn't seem to notice the heavy atmosphere of the scene and giggled. Also, congratulations to the members of Sabertooth for passing the preliminaries. You're in 2nd place. What? Sting said in surprise. We're 2nd place? 2nd place? Roger couldn't help but frown. We are actually 2nd place? What a strange experience. We're only in 2nd place. Lucius pressed down on the hat on his head. At least, in my memory, such a thing has never happened before. Tisk, Olga's expression became a little ugly. In other words, we lost to a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for thousands of years. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the air became dangerous. In an instant, the 4 magic shooters from Sabertooth all released extremely obvious hostility towards Noah and his group. Facing this hostility, not to mention Noah, Mira, and Julian, Lax's eyes became fierce. Gadjaloo took a step forward with a vicious look on his face. What? Do you want to fight? Looking at Gadjaloo, who came forward, Roger's eyes were cold. Gadjaloo, Gadjaloo immediately met Roger's gaze, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "Looks like you want to fight." Roger clenched his fists slightly and was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Sting. "Roger, I know you want to fight with Gadjaloo, just like I want to fight with Nazgul." Sting placed his hand on Logue's shoulder as he stared at Noah and the others. Suddenly, he smiled. "So, I won't allow this kind of thing to happen before me." Roger glanced at Sting, then looked deeply at Gadjaloo, and then silently retreated. "Hey," Gadjaloo seemed to want to say something, but he was stopped by Noah. "Okay, Gadjaloo," Noah said directly. "If you want to fight, wait until the official competition starts. There will be plenty of opportunities. Don't worry about this." Gadjaloo's movements paused, and after a cold snort, he also obediently retreated. Suddenly, Sting and his group immediately understood. Among the 5 people in front of them, it was obvious that Noah was the one in charge. "You are that Noah Doria, right?" Sting first sized up Noah, then looked at Lucius. "Yes, he seems to have killed a Saint Great Magus 7 years ago." "That's right, and he's also recognized by Makarov as the next leader of Fairy Tale. He seems to have a deeper reputation than Kilda's, who is known as the strongest magic shooter in the guild." Lucius smiled slightly. "In terms of strength, he is probably not weaker than Kilda's. That's what my memory tells me." "Is that so?" Sting looked at Noah with an insufferably arrogant smile on his face. "Very good. If not, it would be boring to snatch our first place. I'm looking forward to you a little. Don't let me be too bored, the next president of the Fallen Guild." Hearing this, Noah raised his eyes, met the gazes of Sting and his group, and spoke very calmly. "I hope so." The lukewarm words made Sting ask for a snub. He curled his lips and stopped talking. At this moment, Noah suddenly felt an extremely intense gaze on him. At that moment, Noah turned his head and looked over, taking in the sight of a young girl. Chapter 1657. When Noah's eyes met with the owner of the intense gaze that was directed at him, the image of a delicate and beautiful young lady that entered his eyes involuntarily caused Noah to be slightly startled. That was because the extremely delicate and beautiful girl's eyes were full of all kinds of complicated emotions. Noah's words could clearly distinguish the main body of those emotions. Among them, there was nostalgia, excitement, resentment, touching, and everything else. It was complicated to the extreme. Noah's eyebrows furrowed slightly when he sensed the extremely complicated gaze. "Why is she looking at me like that?" Just as Noah was puzzled, the members of Sabertooth seemed to have noticed the girl's abnormality. "You know," Sting asked in confusion. "What's wrong?" Rog, Lucius, Olga, and the others immediately gathered their gazes on the girl named Yuno, causing her to close her eyes. Her delicate and beautiful face became tense without any expression. "No, it's nothing." Although Sting, Rog, Lucius, Olga, and the others were still somewhat puzzled, they did not pay attention to Yuno anymore. Noah, on the other hand, was stunned once again and fell into deep thought. Yuno. He seemed to have heard this name somewhere before. Could it be that the girl named Yuno is someone I know? With that in mind, Noah began to search his memories. Unfortunately, before Noah could find anything from his memories, the magic formation in the center of the open space suddenly lit up again, and another door appeared, attracting everyone's attention. The next moment, the door opened, and a team walked out. Looking at that team, Noah could no longer search his memories, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Not only Noah, but Mira, Jubian, and Gadjaloo's expressions also became somewhat cold. Laxus's eyes became sharp, and he spoke in a low voice. "Bastard Dad, did you really do it?" Yo-ho-ho, another team has passed the preliminaries. Pumpkin began his introduction with a chuckle. Third place in the preliminaries, Raventail. The group of people who appeared from the door were the magic shooters from the Raventail. The leader of the group was a man with a tall stature. He wore an eye-catching golden armor with a pitch-black cloak on his back and a thick golden mask on his face. The armored man turned his head and looked in the direction of Noah's group. Under the mask, a creepy whisper sounded. "Fairy Tale, As soon as they entered the arena, the Archmage from Raventail stared at Noah's group. However, these people did not do anything, nor did they say anything. They all moved to a corner and stayed there, collectively falling into silence. However, Noah stared intently at the armored man. After a long while, a mocking glint flashed in his deep, dark eyes. "Are you going to use this trick?" Laxus, who clearly saw the mocking light in Noah's eyes, pretended to be calm as he spoke. "Did you discover anything?" "Of course." Noah retracted his gaze and threw this sentence at Laxus. "However, let's just let them be for now. Is that okay?" Laxus could not help but ask. "Those guys will probably do something to us during the competition. The more they do, the more embarrassing it will be when they are exposed," Noah said calmly. "Let's see what kind of performance that group of clowns is going to give." Laxus nodded and did not say anything else. Time passed under these circumstances. About 10 minutes later, the magic array lit up again. This time, the people who came out of the door were the first guild members who did not have any malicious intent towards Fairy Tale. "The fourth place in the preliminaries is here," Pumpkin said. "Fourth place, Lamia Scale." Hearing this guild name, Noah immediately raised his eyebrows and shifted his gaze. "Long time no see, Sir Noah." The first person to greet Noah was none other than Jura. "Ever since the 6 demon generals' oration cease mission, we haven't seen each other for 7 years. Tara came in front of Noah with a happy expression. "It's great that you were able to return safely from Skywolf Island. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Tara." Noah looked at Tara and sighed. "You've changed a lot, too." After 7 years, Tara's image had indeed changed a lot. Now, not only did Tara dress like a monk, but he also grew a long beard. Compared to 7 years ago, he was more reserved and less aggressive. However, this did not mean that Tara had become weak. On the contrary, this sorcerer, who was only at the bottom of the 10 great sorcerers 7 years ago, had now risen to the 5th place. Noah could clearly feel that there was a surging amount of magic power hidden within Jura's body. His demonic power was on par with Kilda's. At this time, another person walked out from Tara's side. "Oh, do you still remember me?" "You are." Noah looked over and immediately recognized the other person. "You are Leo?" "Correct." Leo suddenly smiled. "Where's Gray? Is he not going to participate?" "Gray is in another team." Noah responded with a smile. "Don't worry, he will be here soon." "You're really confident." Leo spread out his hands. "Well, I'll be looking forward to it." During the conversation, another team came out of the magic array. 5th place in the preliminaries, Blue Pegasus. Along with Pumpkin's voice, a group of people that Noah was familiar with appeared from the magic array. Sniff, 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 sniff. A short, fat man with a strange appearance wearing a white suit moved his big nose as if he had discovered something. He suddenly raised his finger and pointed in Noah's direction as if he was posing for a post. "There's a familiar smell." "Oh." Echo looked in the direction that the former was pointing. "Isn't that Fairy Tale's team?" "Sure enough, Fairy Tale is here as well." Ivan flicked his bangs. "I wonder how those beautiful ladies are doing now." "Oomph." Chapter 1658. Just like that, time gradually passed as he continued to wait. After that, the 6th place also appeared. It was a guild called Mermaid Heel. It was said that there were only female members, and it was called the Dancers of the Sea. Of course, the members who represented the guild in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition were all female. And the person who led these members was a girl with long, straight, purplish-black hair with a white ribbon tied around her head. She looked cold and elegant, and she held a katana in her hand. When this girl appeared, she cast an extremely intense gaze at Noah, just like Yuno before. However, the other party's gaze was not like Yuno's, which contained all kinds of complicated emotions, but only an extremely pure examination. It was as if she knew Noah, making people feel that the other party had a certain degree of attachment to Noah. Not only that, among the members behind the girl, one of them was wearing a long robe that covered his face and also cast a gaze at Noah. Although that gaze was not very intense, it carried a trace of ridicule and ridicule. Noah was really confused. Why did he feel that the people who came here had an affair with him? Ah, pooey. It was like they had a grudge against him. Moreover, they were all girls. What was going on? Allah, Mira tightly hugged Noah's arm. Her smile was extremely sweet and warm. Noah is really popular. Undoubtedly, when saying this sentence, whether it was her expression or her voice, Mira was very sweet, but Noah felt a trace of coldness from the bottom of his heart, which made his back start to feel cold. Needless to say, this was the rhythm of a vinegar jar that was about to overturn. Noah could only twitch his face, secretly muttering in his heart. If it was Sheng, Tianzi, Luo Hao, and Wendy, then forget it, but when did he provoke those girls? It seemed that after going back, it was necessary to investigate the origin of these people. After Noah made up his mind, the 7th place team appeared from the magic array. The team that appeared belonged to a guild called Cotter Cerberus. It was a guild that was quite famous even 7 years ago and had many outstanding magic shooters. In this guild, it was said that not only were there extremely powerful magic shooters, but even the guild leader had a very good relationship with Makarov. And this guild was the exact opposite of Mermaid Heel. It was a group of hot-blooded men, and their emotions were very easily agitated. At the very least, after coming out of the magic circle, those guys gathered in a corner and shouted at the top of their lungs. They were so moved that they shed tears while shouting slogans. Just like Blue Pegasus, this guild was also incomparably strange. It was worth mentioning the guild leader of Blue Pegasus had a very good relationship with Makarov. Noah really wanted to ask, "Grandpa, do you only make friends with strange personalities?" It was a pity that Makarov was not present. Otherwise, he would have lost all his face. Seeing that the 7th place had been decided, Noah and the others began to feel nervous. "There's only one team left to pass the preliminaries," Julian said nervously. "Can the other team successfully enter the preliminaries?" This was why the others were nervous. Only one team could pass the preliminaries. If Alusha's team couldn't find the exit of the maze, then they would be in big trouble. Gadjaloo couldn't help but click his tongue. "That fire dragon guy, what is he doing?" "It shouldn't be a problem," Mira comforted. "There's still Alusha. They can definitely pass." "Yeah," Noah said as he looked in the direction of the magic array. "Moreover, it doesn't matter if we can pass or not. At least our guild has been selected, and we can at least enter the top 8 this year." "But are you satisfied with just being in the top 8? Laxus seemed to have seen through Noah's thoughts and smirked. "After the great demon battle exhibition, it will be time for you to inherit the position of guild leader. Will you let your guild stop at the top 8? Do I need to explain that?" Noah smiled knowingly. "Of course not." Mira, Julian, Gadjaloo, and Laxus smiled at the same time. Clang dash. At this moment, the magic array finally lit up again. Everyone's gazes gathered on it. Bang dash. Accompanied by a loud noise, the door was violently pushed open. Then, a group of 5 people fell out of the door together, landing on the ground one after another, causing a series of painful howls. Looking at the 5 people who jumped out of the door, everyone present had different expressions. The eyes of Noah's group lit up. Except for Noah's group, the rest of the people showed a shocked expression. "The last place of the preliminaries is here," Pumpkin announced. 8th place Fairy Tale A-Team. "Ah, what?" Naz, who was pressed at the bottom, shouted. "We're 8th place? Last place." Gray covered his face. "How embarrassing. This is already very good." Lucy rubbed her butt and stood up with a pained expression. "No matter what, we passed the preliminaries." "That's right." Alusha cheered for everyone. "The ranking in the preliminaries doesn't mean anything. All we need to do is to keep winning." Before that, Wendy, who was pressed down by Alusha, rolled her eyes. "Sister Alusha, please get up quickly. The armor is so heavy." Suddenly, the silence in the arena was shattered by Alusha and the others. Seeing Alusha's group making a mess, the other guilds looked at each other. As expected of Fairy Tale, Kara praised from the bottom of her heart. "You actually made it into 2 teams. Amazing." Naz de Ragnar. Sting stared at Naz with an excited expression. You finally appeared. Miss Alusha, you made a post. You really didn't let me down. The others also had different reactions, which made Noah and the others look at each other. Seriously, Noah could only conclude with this sentence. The preliminaries are already so noisy. What are we going to do later? On the other side, Pumpkin coughed and attracted everyone's attention. The top 8 teams have been decided. The preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition have ended. The rankings of the guilds are as follows. First place, Fairy Tail B Team. Second place, Saber-Tooth. Third place, Raventail. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Fifth place, Blue Pegasus. Sixth place, Mermaid Heel. Seventh place, Cotter Cerberus. Eighth place, Fairy Tail A-Team. The above 8 teams will participate in the official competition of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition. Pumpkin raised a finger. The official competition will be held tomorrow. The venue will be filled with spectators from all over the kingdom and even from other parts of the continent. The king and the council will also be paying attention to this competition. Please be prepared. Don't make a fool of yourself, Pumpkin. As soon as he finished speaking, the people of the 8 teams began to look at the people they cared about. Noah's gaze swept across the teams and people standing in the venue. His eyes flickered slightly. The Great Demon Battle Exhibition would begin tomorrow. When the time came, no one knew what would happen. However, no matter what happened, Noah only had one goal. The Fiori Kingdom. First place. Chapter 1659. At the same time as the preliminaries ended, the image of the giant pumpkin appeared once again in the sky above Coloches. At this point, the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition have ended. The 8 teams have been selected, and the official competition will begin tomorrow. Welcome to the venue. After leaving this sentence, the image of the giant pumpkin disappeared. Then, the steel city floating above Coloches suddenly shook, and all the contestants who were still inside were shaken out. Then, like a mirage, it disappeared. Thus, the screams of the sorcerers in the sky above Coloches echoed through the night sky as they fell to the ground one by one. The residents of Coloches watched this scene with great interest, and they discussed it animatedly. Although it's just the preliminaries, it seems quite interesting. Too bad there's no live broadcast. I wonder which guilds the teams that passed the preliminaries are from. Does that even need to be said? There must be a Saber-Tooth, right? Lamia Scale, who has always been in second place in previous years, must have also been selected. In the previous Great Demonic Battle Exhibition matches, the results of the Blue Pegasus were also very good. I heard that there's also Mermaid Heel, who only accepts female members. Their strength is also quite good. Looks like this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition will be quite interesting. Of course, I heard that there's even one of the top 10 Saint Sorcerers among the contestants. No matter how I think about it, it won't be boring. Are you serious? Then I must go watch it tomorrow. Me too. Me too. For a moment, the whole of Coloches was filled with the noise of the residents. One must know that the preliminaries started at midnight. Now that the preliminaries were over, it was indeed very rare for it to still be so lively. However, in order to be able to watch the competition tomorrow, the residents chatted animatedly as they returned home, preparing to sleep early and wake up early. During this time, no one mentioned Fairy Tail. Perhaps, in the eyes of these people, the guild that had been at the bottom for 10,000 years must have been eliminated. Therefore, when the rankings of the qualifiers were announced the next day, the audience's expressions would be very interesting. It was something that could be predicted. On the other hand, some of the people involved were very unhappy. Damn it! On the way back to the hotel, Naz had been very unwilling. Why did Noah's team get first place, but my team only got last place? Are you still thinking about this? Lucy rubbed her forehead as if she had a headache. Didn't I say that passing the preliminaries is already very good? Not good at all. Naz shouted. Our goal is to get first place. Our goal is to be the champion of the Fiori Kingdom, not the champion of the qualifier, Gray said impatiently. Of the 8 teams that have passed the preliminaries, Our guild has occupied 2 of the slots. One of them has even won first place in the preliminaries. You should be satisfied, Smelly Flame. I still don't feel good. Nazi pointed at Lucy. So, Lucy, hurry up and let hubby eat you. Why do I have to be eaten if you're unhappy? Lucy couldn't help but complain. Also, of all the people who can eat, it has to be hubby. That's enough. Stop arguing. Alusa was getting impatient. Tomorrow is the official competition. Save some energy for me and think about what to do tomorrow. But if it's a competition, what exactly will it be? Wendy tilted her head and looked a little uneasy. I feel a little nervous. Well, it's best to have a direct confrontation. Gray pulled his collar. If that's the case, we have no possibility of losing. Uh-huh. Lucy laughed dryly. I hope that everything is not solved with violence. In the end, Alusha, Nazi, Gray, Lucy, and Winnie were chatting happily about the great demon battle exhibition. They were no different from the residents of Clocaska. On the other hand, Noah, Mira, Julian, Gadjaloo, and Laxus didn't say much. They quietly walked behind Alusha and the others with a helpless expression. It's always so noisy no matter what. Gadjaloo curled his lips. When will it be quieter? Isn't it good? Zhu Bian smiled. After all, it's a ceremony. A ceremony should be lively. Mira held Noah's arm and walked with Noah while smiling. Why don't our guild hold a ceremony too? I'm not against it. Laxus closed his eyes and crossed his arms as he slowly opened his mouth. As long as that old man's wallet is enough. In other words, these people were also enjoying it. Noah could only look at his companions in amusement, but his heart was unbelievably calm. At this moment, a voice sounded in Noah's heart. Seeing how noisy these people are, I also feel a sense of tranquility. What an incredible group of people. Hearing this voice, Noah was startled at first. Then he smiled silently in his heart. But this is the fairy tale. Is that so? Athena was a little skeptical, but at the same time, she seemed to agree with him. I more or less understand why you're so obsessed with this so-called guild. As soon as Athena's words fell, another voice sounded in Noah's heart. It's indeed incredible. Aster rarely said such rational and emotional words. In the past, I've never seen a human who can easily affect the mood of an elf. After all, the relationship between humans and elves was specious. At least, in the world of the sword dance of the elves, if a human wanted to affect the mood of an elf, unless they did something extremely bad and made the elves furious. If they wanted to make the elves feel better and closer to humans, they would have to offer a sword dance and divine music ceremony. However, the group of people in the fairy tale relied on their own actions to naturally affect the mood of the elves. No wonder Aster gave them such an incredible evaluation. In this regard, Noah just smiled. But this is the fairy tale. The same sentence, but it was approved by both Aster and Athena, and they fell into silence. At this moment, Mira, who was holding Noah's hand, suddenly spoke. Noah, in front. Hearing this, Noah subconsciously looked to the front and stopped in his tracks. His companions also followed Noah and stopped. This was because in the middle of the road, a person stood there, blocking everyone's path. Ooh! A gust of wind blew past, and the snow-white coat on the girl's body fluttered. The snow-white girl stood under the moonlight, and a pair of beautiful eyes stared at them. There were indescribable waves in her eyes. Looking at the delicate and beautiful girl under the moonlight, Ilusha's expression froze. You're the archmage of the saber-tooth. The girl who blocked their path and suddenly appeared here was Suno of the saber-tooth. Ignoring Ilusha's question, Suno lifted her feet and slowly walked over. Naz and Gray almost reflexively clenched their fists and planned to go forward. However, before Naz and Gray could take a step forward, their shoulders were tightly pressed down. At this moment, Naz and Gray were startled at the same time. They turned their heads and looked behind them. The person who entered Naz and Gray's eyes was Noah. Noah. Naz and Gray were surprised. Noah shook his head, patted Naz and Gray's shoulders, and immediately walked past them. He went in front of the group and met Suno's gaze. Noah understood. This young girl was definitely here for him. Chapter 1660. An extremely silent and strange atmosphere pervaded the air. At this moment, there was only Noah's group on the huge street. On the opposite side, the girl named Xuan seemed to be riding on the moonlight as she quietly walked towards Noah's group step by step. However, in Xuan's eyes that were filled with strong willpower, there was no one else other than Noah. As if she didn't see the existence of the other people in Fairy Tale at all, Xuan came to a distance of 2 to 3 meters away from Noah and stared straight at Noah. Looking at the gentle yet strong girl's eyes, Noah confirmed one thing in his heart. As expected, this girl named Xuan had some kind of connection with him. In addition, Noah felt that the name was familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. Noah felt that he should know her. However, he definitely wasn't familiar with her. With Noah's memory, if she really knew him, then Noah definitely wouldn't have forgotten her. Therefore, she shouldn't be familiar with him. It was even possible that they had only met once, or even just met by chance. However, if that was the case, then there was a problem. The girl named Xuan looked at Noah with eyes that clearly contained very complicated and strong feelings. In a situation where they had only met once, or even just met by chance, was it possible for a person to have such strong feelings for another person? Just as Noah was thinking about this question, the girl named Xuan spoke. Moreover, the moment she spoke, everyone present stood up in shock. Please leave, Fairy Tale. An extremely sudden and shocking sentence came out of Xuan's mouth just like that. What? Everyone exclaimed in shock. Leave, Fairy Tale? Noah couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Noah had thought about why Xuan came to find him. However, no matter how much he thought about it, Noah didn't expect that Xuan would say such a sentence the moment she opened her mouth. Leave, Fairy Tale? This girl named Xuan came in front of him just to make him leave Fairy Tale? Why, you bastard! Naz raised his fist and shouted without hesitation. It's impossible for Noah to leave Fairy Tale. Xuan didn't care about Naz's shouts at all. She only stared at Noah, as if Noah was the only person left in the whole world. She only showed excessive attachment to Noah. This made Naz's heart burn with anger. Just as he was about to say something, he was immediately stopped by Alusha. Enough, Naz. Alusha looked at Xuan with a serious expression. Let's leave this to Noah. The rest of the people, including Mira, also nodded. Their eyes were focused on Noah and Xuan, choosing to watch from the sidelines. It was only then that Noah reacted. He frowned deeply and said, That's right. Why? Hearing Noah's question, Xuan said without hesitation, This guild doesn't deserve you. You should be in the Fiori Kingdom's strongest magic guide guild, not this kind of guild at the bottom. This was another sentence that was out of everyone's expectations. Gadjaloo, who originally thought that the people from Sabertooth were here to find trouble, interrupted in an extremely bored manner. So you're here to poach? How boring. These words infuriated Xuan. What can you understand? Xuan's gaze was like an arrow, shooting at the group of people behind Noah. This lord is a sorcerer who belongs to the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. He used to be, and he still is, but he is no longer your Fairy Tale. The stubbornness and strangeness in Xuan's words made the group of magic shooters from Fairy Tale look at each other in dismay. It sounded like the other party was belittling and looking down on Fairy Tale. But everyone felt that compared to this, Xuan seemed to care more about the title of the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom. Indeed, currently, the strongest guild in the Fiori Kingdom was Sabertooth. Could it be that this girl was here to show off? But what did that have to do with Noah? Everyone was puzzled, not to mention the rest of the people. Even Noah was a little confused. It was just that Noah at least understood Xuan's meaning. In other words, Noah looked at Xuan. Do you want me to join Sabertooth? Yes. Xuan nodded heavily, her tone revealing a strong emotion that had never been seen before. You should be a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the kingdom of Fiori. You shouldn't stay in a guild that has always been at the bottom. Please leave, Fairy Tale. Only Sabertooth is worthy of my lord. After saying this, Xuan's gaze swept over the group of people behind Noah. You should be the ones who know Lord Noah's ability the best. Don't tell me that you think the current fairy tale is worthy of this lord. Xuanai's criticism, whether intentional or not, made everyone completely angry. You're called Xuanai, right? Elisha took a step forward and looked straight at Xuanai. Although I don't know why you're so obsessed with Noah, but I can tell you with certainty that Noah's place is fairy tale. This, no matter what, will not change. Exactly. Lucy cannot help but speak up. Indeed, in the past, fairy tale was at the bottom of the kingdom of Fiori. But today we've also passed the preliminaries and confirmed our position as one of the top 8 guilds. For the next year, we'll be at least one of the top 8 guilds. Moreover, we are not satisfied with just being in the top 8. Gray glanced at Xuanai. Maybe you were right. With Noah's ability, he should be in the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom. That is why we are here. Winnie's heart seemed to be filled with unlimited courage, and for the first time, she spoke with a resolute and decisive tone. We will definitely win in the great magic battle exhibition and become the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom once again. That's right. Naz fiercely punched his fist, and his eyes became sharp. If Noah should only be in the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom, then this guild can only be fairy tale. Everyone's words were filled with a strong will, and Xuanai could not help but take 2 steps back, and her eyes were slightly shaken. However, this slight wavering immediately disappeared. That is impossible, Xuanai said with a trembling voice. The strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom can only be Sabretooth. Oh, Laxus slightly narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. Then, do you want to try? Thus, the atmosphere at the scene transitioned to a very dangerous level. Noah's eyebrows were tightly knitted, and he was puzzled by Xuanai's unusual attitude towards him. This girl did not seem to have any hostility towards him. It should be said that it was the opposite, and every word and sentence of Xuanai revealed a kind of extreme respect and longing for Noah. But it was also because of this that Noah was puzzled. Why was Xuanai so obsessed with him? If it was a person who had such strong feelings for him, how could he not recognize her? What was going on? Xuanai did not know what to think of Noah's silence, but after a moment of silence, she raised her head and looked straight at Noah, and her eyes flashed with determination. If that is the case, please accept my challenge. Chapter 1661. Challenge. At this moment, all the magic shooters in Fairy Tale were startled. However, Xuanai only had eyes for Noah. She stared at Noah's face and said, "If I win, my lord must leave Fairy Tale and join Sabretooth." Before Noah could respond, Naz stood up. Interesting. Naz's eyes became extremely bright. The space around him began to fill with heat waves, causing the air to distort. Noah, let me fight it out with her. Think carefully before you speak, you idiot. Gray was speechless. If you lose, then Noah will have to join Sabretooth. It doesn't matter, Naz said with conviction. In any case, I won't lose. Wait. No matter what, your opponent is still a saber-toothed sorcerer. Lucy hurriedly said, "If you accidentally lose, what will happen to Noah?" That's right. When he couldn't help but say, "At least let Sister Elisha, Sister Mira, or Brother Laxus fight. I'm fine with it," Laxus said expressionlessly. "If my brother is poached to another guild, even I won't sit back and do nothing. I'm fine with it too." Myra's expression became serious. "Now, no matter who the opponent is, I won't lose. After all, if I lose, the companion I grew up with will leave me." Elisha looked at Xuanai with a sharp gaze. "So I don't mind fighting. Then I'll interfere too." Gadjula grinned. "Trying to poach someone in front of me? That's really annoying." Zhu Bian also has no problem. Zhu Bian also said, "Julian won't be merciful." Clearly, Xuanai's words had also stimulated the members of Fairy Tale. Most importantly, if this challenge was about whether Noah could stay in the guild, then everyone was absolutely duty-bound. They definitely wouldn't lose. This was the belief in the hearts of the people of Fairy Tale. Noah was naturally very grateful for this, but Shui Nai didn't appreciate it. There's only one person I want to challenge. Shui Nai stared at Noah without blinking. Please accept my challenge. Noah was silent. After a while, Noah said faintly, Give up. Give up. You can't beat me. No, Shui Nai said stubbornly. I won't lose. I don't understand why you're so obsessed with me. Noah finally said what was in his heart. But I have to tell you, if there's a place I should be, it is definitely not the saber tooth, but the fairy tale. Shui Nai's pretty face suddenly sank, and she looked at Noah with some sadness in her eyes. She bit her lips and squeezed out these words. Undoubtedly, you said that you're a sorcerer from the strongest guild in the Fiori kingdom. Noah didn't hear Shui Nai's words and could only frown again. What did you say? Shui Nai didn't answer, but raised her head again, looked deeply at Noah, and said, I'll prove to you that no matter what, Fairy Tale is no match for Sabretooth. Shui Nai's tone became resolute. At that time, you'll naturally understand which guild is the place you should be in. Leaving behind these words, Shui Nai turned around and once again took a quiet step. Riding on the beautiful moonlight, she left without looking back, leaving behind a beautiful but somewhat desolate back view for everyone. The street fell into silence. Everyone looked at Shui Nai's desolate back view, and at the same time focused their attention on Noah. In the end, it was Mira who asked softly, Do you know the girl named Shui Nai? I don't think I know her. At least I don't think I know her. Noah sighed. So, to be more precise, I should say I've seen her somewhere, or there's something I don't know, or even can't remember, right? Hearing this, everyone didn't say anything. Noah took a deep breath and looked at Alusha. I want to investigate two people. One is Shui Nai, right? Alusha said directly. Who's the other one? In Mermaid Heel. Isn't there a leader with a katana? Noah didn't hold back and said concisely. The other one is her. I see. Alusha nodded. I'll ask my companions in the guild to investigate. I'll help too. Mira held Noah's hand tightly, but her eyes didn't retract from the direction Shui Nai left. I feel like I can't just sit back and watch that kid. Myra's words were exactly what Noah was thinking. Yeah. Noah looked at the direction Shui Nai left and muttered softly. We can't just sit back and watch. After returning to the hotel, Noah told Makarov that Team A and Team B had both passed the preliminaries and were about to participate in the official competition. After reporting the good news, he asked Makarov to help him investigate the two girls. Makarov didn't know why Noah wanted to investigate the two girls, but he didn't ask. He only thought that Noah was concerned about the two girls who were his opponents. Then, he promised that he would immediately obtain the information that Noah wanted. Needless to say, Makarov did it. Relying on his previous connections and his reputation as one of the top 10 Saint Magus, Makarov successfully obtained the information that Noah wanted. He even obtained the information of the other opponents in the Great Demon Combat Arts competition and brought it to Noah. Thus, Noah immediately looked at the information of the two girls that he was concerned about. In a room in the hotel, Noah sat on the edge of the bed, and in his hands was a document labeled Mermaid Heel. As soon as he opened the document, Noah saw the person he wanted to investigate. Then, Noah slowly read out the name of the other party. Kagura Mikazaki. Kagura Mikazaki. She belonged to the guild Mermaid Heel and was publicly recognized as the strongest archmage in the guild. This girl named Kagura wasn't the guild leader of Mermaid Heel, but she was the de facto leader of Mermaid Heel. Not only was her strength extremely powerful, she also had excellent physical and swordsmanship. Even without using magic, she could easily defeat the majority of archmages. Regarding this girl, there was such an evaluation in the document. In this year's Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition, the archmage second only to the 10 great saint archmages, Terrarisis? Noah muttered. Then, why would such a powerful archmage look at me like that? Noah didn't understand. If it was Yino, Noah could still faintly feel that he had heard this name somewhere before, and that he should have seen her somewhere before. But for this girl, named Kagura, Noah didn't feel the slightest bit of familiarity. Without a doubt, Noah definitely didn't know this person. But why would a person he didn't know look at him like that? This feels really strange. Of course, compared to the strange feeling, Noah felt more of a headache. He attracted the attention of two girls for no reason, and they were very persistent, and he didn't know them. Anyone would feel like their head was as big as a bull. All right, there's another person wearing a cloak. Noah continued to flip through the document. In the next second, Noah saw a name and showed a startled expression. It's her. Chapter 1662. Noah didn't have any impression of Kagura from Mermaid Heel, so he was sure that he didn't know this girl. However, when Noah saw the name of the person who followed behind Kagura in the Mermaid Heel, who was wearing a black robe and looking at him with ridicule and mockery in the venue, he immediately remembered who that person was. So, she joined Mermaid Heel? Noah looked at the information in his hand, and his heart slightly moved. Could it be that Kagura has some relationship with her, so she acted like that to me? The more he thought about it, the more Noah felt that it was possible. Fortunately, it's not like I don't have any clues. This way, the investigation will be valuable. Of course, although Noah noticed Kagura's words, he didn't care that much. After all, when Kagura looked at Noah at the venue, rather than saying that she was persistent, it would be better to say that she was overly scrutinizing him. Compared to Kagura, Yukino's matter was more important. Thinking of this, Noah directly put down the information marked Mermaid Heel in his hand and pulled out the part marked Saber-Tooth from the pile of information next to him. After flipping through the information of Saber-Tooth, Noah directly found Yukino's information. Yukino Agulia. He belonged to the Saber-Tooth and was a rather famous sorcerer in the Saber-Tooth. As everyone knew, the guild known as Saber-Tooth was just a small guild 7 years ago. Later on, they replaced a guild leader and brought in 5 powerful sorcerers. From then on, they soared to the sky and became famous in the kingdom of Fiori. After 7 years, Saber-Tooth was now the most famous guild in the kingdom. Even excluding the 5 powerful sorcerers who were introduced to the guild and changed the situation of the guild, there was no longer a lack of strong sorcerers in the guild. And Yukino was a famous sorcerer who could be ranked in the top 10 of Saber-Tooth. According to the information, after the preliminaries of the Great Demon Martial Arts Exhibition, among the Saber-Tooth team that appeared at the venue, 4 of them were the Archmages who had changed the name of Saber-Tooth. Only Snow was an exception. In order to obtain the qualifications to appear together with Sting, Logue, Lucifer, and Olga, Snow defeated all the other members of the Saber-Tooth ranking competition, except for the 5 magic shooters who had changed their guild. She stood out from the crowd and came to this stage. At first glance, it seemed that Yukino was quite impressive, but in fact, in the beginning, Yukino wasn't that conspicuous. Noah, who was looking at Yukino's information, frowned in the next second. How many times have you applied to join Saber-Tooth, only to be rejected? That's right. In the beginning, Yukino wasn't even allowed to join Saber-Tooth. She tried to join the guild several times, but was mercilessly rejected. This was because the guild leader who brought Saber-Tooth to the peak used absolute terror to control the entire guild. The guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army, and he didn't allow any weak members to appear in the guild. Furthermore, if someone did something that even slightly disgraced the name of the strongest guild, even if it was just a single defeat, they would be expelled from the guild by the guild leader. The guild called Saber-Tooth was just that strict and urgent. Yukino had applied to join Saber-Tooth at the beginning, but was rejected because she was too weak. However, in order to join Saber-Tooth, Yukino worked hard to hone her magic skills. She went to their door several times before finally gaining recognition and joining Saber-Tooth. She stood out from all the other members and caught up to the 5 powerful sorcerers who changed the guild. And yet, such a young girl was using a type of magic that surprised Noah. Star magic. Yukino was a star magic sorcerer. Moreover, according to reliable information, this young girl most likely had the keys to the 12 zodiac temples, and more than one. Yukino, star magic. Noah only felt a trace of inspiration in his mind. This girl, I really do know her. Although he still couldn't remember, whether it was the name Yukino or the trace of inspiration regarding star magic, it all told Noah that he had some connection with this young girl. However, since Noah couldn't remember, it proved that to Noah, it should be something unimportant. However, to Yukino, it should be a very important matter, right? Or else, Yukino wouldn't be so obsessed with Noah. Closing the information in his hands, Noah casually threw it on the bed, got up, and went to the window, looking at the night sky outside. In the silent night sky, there were a lot of stars, giving off an indescribable feeling of peace. Noah looked at the night sky, and soon after, looked in one direction. I remember Sabertooth's hotel is in that direction, right? Saying this, Noah's mouth slowly raised. Let's just treat it as scouting the enemy. After saying this, Noah directly stepped on the windowsill and jumped out of the window, turning into a ray of light, flying towards one of the directions in Coloca's. In Coloca's, there was a hotel named Garden. As the name suggested, it was a hotel that looked like a garden. This was where Sabertooth stayed during the Great Demonic Battle exhibition. At this moment, in one of the extremely spacious rooms in the hotel, many magic shooters were gathered here. These sorcerers were naturally all from the Sabertooth sorcerers. However, at this moment, these magic shooters were lined up neatly as if they were an army. Sting, Rog, Lucifer, Olga, and Yukino were at the front of the line. Based on this arrangement, it was easy to tell who had the highest position in the Sabertooth. The so-called Sabertooth was a guild that determined one's status based on strength. And at the front of the neatly arranged magic shooters, there was a person sitting on a throne-like seat. This person was extremely tall and sturdy, even more exaggerated than Olga. He was about 2 meters tall and dressed like a sand monk. A string of prayer beads hung around his neck, and the guild's emblem was imprinted on his forehead. His face was extremely ferocious. This person was the guild leader of Sabertooth, Germain. Looking at Germain, who was sitting upright in his seat, the members of Sabertooth all held their breaths, not daring to even breathe. This was because everyone knew that Germain was in a very bad mood. No, it should be said that he had already entered a state of rage. Second place. A low voice came out of Germain's mouth like a tiger's roar. The famous Sabertooth that has always stood at the top, revered by countless people, looked up to by countless people, feared by countless people, because of a trashy guild that has been at the bottom for 10,000 years, now can only lower themselves to second place. Everyone's palms began to sweat. It had to be said that Germain's voice, filled with anger, was really too scary. Chapter 1663. In fact, Germain was in a very bad mood right now. Sabertooth, the guild that was known as the strongest guild and stood at the peak of all the guilds in the kingdom, had actually placed second in the preliminaries before the official competition began. Germain could already imagine how many people would treat Sabertooth as a joke when this news spread. Of course, this was only Germain's imagination. To the average citizen, the fact that Sabertooth could only place second in the qualifiers was shocking. However, what was even more shocking was the fact that Fairy Tail was the one who took away Sabertooth's first place. After all, Fairy Tail had always been at the bottom. This time, they had surpassed all the other guilds in the preliminary round and obtained first place. This would definitely cause a lot of people to be surprised. However, to say that Sabertooth was a joke because of this would be overestimating Sabertooth too much. It wasn't like Sabertooth was the only team that was overtaken. There were so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, but all of them had been overtaken. Who would specifically laugh at Sabertooth? However, Germain had treated the first place as something that was already in his bag. He thought that if this was taken away from him, others would definitely laugh at Sabertooth. It could only be said that Germain had taken Sabertooth's first place for granted. As such, when this fact was broken, Germain was so angry. The only guild that can make others look up to is Sabertooth. It has always been like this. No one can make Sabertooth look up to them, let alone Fairy Tail, who started to fall from grace 7 years ago. Germain's extremely cold gaze swept across everyone below. You should understand what I mean, right? The people who were swept by Germain's gaze couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. In the end, it was Sting who took a step forward and lowered his head. As if he was reporting to his superior, he spoke respectfully. President, please rest assured, we will not lose again. Remember your promise. Germain said expressionlessly. Remember, my saber tooth doesn't need trash who can't win. Yes, Sting could only reply in a low voice. The anger in Germain's heart subsided a lot. Then, he turned his gaze to Xuan-Nai. I heard that after the preliminary round ended, you went to look for someone from Fairy Tale. Xuan-Nai's heart suddenly tightened, and she couldn't help but lower her head. Looking at Xuan-Nai, Germain said heartlessly, Tell me, why did you look for someone from that trash guild? Xuan-Nai opened her mouth and finally squeezed out this sentence. I want that person to join. Before Xuan-Nai could finish her sentence, she was rudely interrupted by Germain. My saber-tooth does not need someone from that trash guild. Germain said matter-of-factly. You are not allowed to mention this matter again. Clearly, Germain knew very well who the person Xuan-Nai was talking about was, and she also knew what Xuan-Nai was planning. Thus, once she opened her mouth, Germain completely shut down Xuan-Nai's hopes and ideas. Xuan-Nai's heart trembled, and she couldn't help but raise her head and speak emotionally. But that person is not weak, he just stayed in a guild that he shouldn't be in. If we can get that person to join Sabertooth, then our Sabertooth will definitely become stronger. When this sentence was said, not only Germain, but everyone else was shocked. Of course, what shocked everyone was not the content of Xuan-Nai's words, but the fact that Xuan-Nai actually dared to stand up and refute Germain's decision. To put it bluntly, in Sabertooth, Germain was the god. It could be seen from the fact that the guild's order and atmosphere were as strict as an army by Germain. In other words, Germain did not allow anyone to disagree with her. This person sincerely treated Sabertooth as her personal property, and she could create it as she pleased. Under such circumstances, if someone disagreed with Germain, then even if it was not a death wish, it could only be said that they were overestimating their own strength. Thus, Germain's gaze was fixed on Xuan-Nai, and she straightened her back like a tiger that got up. So you're saying that someone from a bottom-tier guild can change the entire Sabertooth just like that? Xuan-Nai bit her lips and spoke softly. I just think that person is not weak. Not weak? Germain turned her head and looked at Lucifer. Lucifer, the person that Xuan-Nai mentioned, what do you think? From the surface, I can't see his depth. Lucifer pressed down on his hat and answered truthfully. However, that person had killed a Saint Archmage 7 years ago. Even if he hadn't made any progress in the past 7 years, he should still be much more powerful than the average Archmage. That's what my memory says. Have you ever killed one of the 10 great Saint Grand Magi? Germain asked in a non-committal manner. That was only 7 years ago. However, you're right. Even if it was only 7 years ago, being able to kill a great Archmage Saint proves that he's stronger than the average trash. But our Sabertooth does not need someone who can't keep up with the times. Germain glanced at Xuan-Nai. In this year's Great Demon Battle Exhibition, that Rock Iron Jula also appeared. If he can defeat Rock Iron Jula, then I can consider letting him join. When she said this, Germain's tone faintly carried a bit of sarcasm. It was clear that Germain did not think that Noah could defeat Jula. It wasn't just Germain. Even the rest of the members of Sabertooth had a look of disbelief on their faces. They all thought that this was an impossible matter. That was natural. Even if Germain was a dictator, even if she was confident, in front of the 5th Saint Archmage, she would not dare to say that she could surpass him. From Germain's point of view, Sabertooth was without a doubt the strongest guild in the game. As a member of this guild, no matter who it was, as long as they failed once, they had to be eliminated. In this great magic combat drill, the only opponent that Germain would allow her members to lose against was the 5th-ranked Grand Magus, Jura. Even the arrogant Germain believed that no one in the guild could defeat Turtledove and allowed them to fail. Needless to say, there was no one in the guild that could defeat Turtledove. Thus, Germain's words were pure mockery. In this regard, Chouette Nine naturally understood. She could only close her eyes, hide all her emotions, and no longer speak. The entire hall was silent. No one noticed. On the roof of the hotel, a person was lying on his back, looking at the night sky and listening to the conversation of the members of Sabretooth. "Consider letting me join?" Noah indifferently smiled. That smile was truly filled with sarcasm and ridicule. "Looks like I have to show a little bit of my ability tomorrow and let these people know that the person they need to look up to is a tiger or a fairy." After saying this, Noah directly got up, turned into a ray of light, and flew into the sky, disappearing into the night sky. Chapter 1664. The next day, when the sky gradually brightened up, many residents of Coloca's had already woken up. These residents who had woken up were all heading to the dome to watch the Great Demon Martial Arts competition. Therefore, early in the morning, the streets of Coloca's were crowded with people. People walked in groups of twos and threes, and as the tide of people surged, they began to move towards the dome. These people who were able to go to the dome to watch the Great Demon Martial Arts competition were very lucky people who bought tickets. After all, although the dome wasn't small, it couldn't hold the entire population of Coloca's, let alone those who came from all over the kingdom and even the mainland. Therefore, the existence of tickets was a matter of course. As for those who couldn't buy tickets, they could watch the live broadcast from other places. For an annual festival like the Great Demon Martial Arts competition, no matter which pub, which hotel, or even the streets, one could watch the live broadcast. These people didn't need to wake up so early, so they continued to lie in their beds and sleep comfortably. However, that didn't mean that they would sleep for long. Bang, 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 bang. In the sky above the dome, the sound of firecrackers and fireworks kept echoing in the air. Balloons were released from the venue and floated into the sky. Combined with the firecrackers and fireworks everywhere, the scene couldn't be described as not lively. As the audience entered the venue, the atmosphere of the entire venue gradually heated up. Cheers! It was noisy. Firecrackers and fireworks. All kinds of voices were mixed together, making the entire scene seem like a festival, bustling with noise and excitement. On the rostrum of the venue, there were 3 people sitting side by side. The person in the lead picked up the microphone and gave a passionate speech to the entire venue. "Hello, everyone. I am Chabadi Laura. I would like to extend my greetings to everyone from all over the kingdom." The audience immediately cheered enthusiastically, causing Chapati Lola to cough involuntarily. His tensed-up face was about to relax as he pointed to the side of him. "In this year's Great Demon Combat Arts competition, I will be in charge of giving you a live report. The person in charge of commentating is the former member of the Senate. It is said that he is also one of the 10 great Saint Magi who has returned after missing for 7 years, Mr. Yajma, a close friend of Makarov Dolia." Sitting beside Chabadi was the counselor who had met Noah once in the council and had a good relationship with Makarov Ajma. Back then, after the commotion at the Paradise Tower, the council was disbanded due to various reasons. Now, the new council was responsible for maintaining the peace of the magic world. After that, Yajma also stepped down from his position as a counselor and opened a restaurant as a chef. Now, Yajma was invited to be the commentator of the Great Demon Combat Arts competition, but he was still wearing a chef's outfit and waving to everyone with a benevolent expression. In addition to me and Mr. Yajma, who are in charge of commentating, during the Great Demon Combat Art competition, we will invite a guest every other day to watch the competitions of the Magic Guide Guild with us. Chabadi's voice was still enthusiastic. On the first day, the guest we invited is the cover girl of the Magic Weekly, a top model we are familiar with, Miss Jenny of Blue Pegasus. Following Chabadi's words, on the rostrum, sitting next to Yajma, A beautiful girl wearing a princess-style dress with long, light blonde curly hair tied into a ponytail raised her hand and waved to the audience. The audience immediately burst into cheers that were even more enthusiastic than before, causing Jenny to beam with joy. It seems that Mr. Yajma and Miss Jenny are very famous. Here, I might as well interview the two of you for everyone. Chabadi understood the atmosphere very well and asked Yajma, who was next to him. Mr. Yajma, as a former counselor, in your professional opinion, which guild is more worthy of our expectations in this great demon combat arts competition? If I have to say, actually, every guild is very worthy of everyone's expectations. Yajma nodded leisurely. But, personally, I am more looking forward to Fairy Tale. Oh, is that so? Chabadi said in surprise. But didn't Fairy Tale always end up at the bottom of the list in the past? You also said that that was in the past. Yajma laughed. In this year's Great Demon Combat Exhibition, the main force members who had been missing for 7 years will also appear. Back then, these members were all very powerful archmages. Now that they have returned after 7 years, what kind of performance will they bring? I am very much looking forward to this. So that's how it is. The Dark Horse is indeed very worthy of people's expectations. Chabadi nodded and turned to ask Jenny, who was next to Yajma. Then, which guild does Miss Jenny think is likely to win? Of course, it's Blue Pegasus, Jenny said without any hesitation. This year, we came to win. We will definitely not lose to anyone. Could it be that Miss Jenny doesn't have any expectations for Fairy Tale? Chabadi took advantage of the opportunity to ask. It is said that in this year's Fairy Tale, as Miss Jenny Sr. and also a top model, Miss Mira, who everyone likes very much, will also appear? If that's the case, in fact, I am more looking forward to Miss Myra's rumored fiancé. Jenny's face showed a perfect smile. What kind of person is he to be able to capture the most beautiful girl in the modeling world, who's ranked #1 in the Magic Weekly rankings, and who was once the most beautiful girl in the modeling world? Personally, I'm very much looking forward to finding out. Jenny's words made the entire audience begin to shout loudly. Many of them had a look of deep hatred on their faces, and tears even flowed from their eyes. Obviously, Jenny's words resonated with many people. Of course, it was not anticipation, but resentment. After 7 years, Myra's popularity was still so high, it was terrifying. In this regard, Chabadi nodded repeatedly. Indeed, even I can't help but look forward to the man who can go down the aisle with the beloved Miss Mira. What kind of man is he? Let us all wait and see. After saying this, Chabadi went into the main topic. Then, this year's Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition is about to begin. The 8 teams that pass the preliminaries will enter the arena. Now, let us announce the rankings of the preliminaries to everyone. After saying this, a huge projection screen flashed in the center of the venue. On the screen, from top to bottom, the rankings of the major guilds were marked. First place, Fairy Tale B Team. Second place, Sabertooth. Third place, Raven Tail. Fourth place, Lamia Scale. Fifth place, Blue Pegasus. Sixth place, Mermaid Heel. Seventh place, Cotter Cerberus. Eighth place, Fairy Tale Team. Looking at this ranking, many people in the audience began to clamor. That Sabertooth is only in second place? First place is actually Fairy Tale? It can't be? Suddenly, a commotion began to arise in the audience. Chapter 1665. For a moment, the entire space of the venue was filled with confused and surprised noises from the audience. Moreover, when they saw that Fairy Tale had actually been selected for 2 teams, everyone was even more surprised and rowdy. As if he had already expected this scene, Chabadi held the microphone tightly and spoke to Yajima. It seems that the results of Fairy Tale have surprised everyone. Mr. Yajima, what do you think? I can only say that Fairy Tale really didn't let me down. Yajima looked very satisfied. I believe that after this, Fairy Tale will definitely show us her former glory and strength, and let everyone acknowledge her. That's true. Chabadi nodded and looked at Jenny. Then what do you think, Miss Jenny? Well, I don't think everyone needs to be so surprised, Jenny said with a smile. It doesn't matter what kind of guild it is. If it can make the Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition more exciting and lively, wouldn't that be great? As expected of Mr. Ijima and Miss Jenny, I can't help but admire their views. Chabadi raised his voice. So, I asked the audience to look forward to the performance of the former king, our fairy tale. The conversation between the three people on the rostrum made the audience in the auditorium stop their noise and began to cheer in agreement. It had to be said that this live reporter called Chabadi really had some skills. He had been firmly controlling the atmosphere of the venue and didn't forget to hype it up. No wonder he was selected as the live reporter of the annual Great Demon Battle Arts exhibition. Then, Chabadi began to announce. Then, let's invite our contestants to enter. At this moment, under the 8 directions of the auditorium, the passages began to flash with magical light. Dazzling special effects ballooned at the entrances of the 8 passages at the same time, igniting the hearts of the audience. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, 8 teams slowly walked out from within. Oh, oh, oh! Loud and clear cheers soared into the sky, shaking the atmosphere. At the entrance of one of the passages, Noah led Mira, Julian, Gadjaloo, and Laxus forward on foot. Looking at Noah, who was leading the 4 people forward, many people in the spectator seats began to discuss spiritedly. Is that Miss Myra's fiancé? He doesn't look that good. However, his aura is not bad. Is he the one who led Fairy Tale's team and got first place in the preliminaries? Isn't the person beside him Miss Mira? Looks like it's him. Noya, who could clearly hear the discussions coming from all directions, couldn't help but feel somewhat helpless. Noah, who was waiting for his turn in the contestant area, naturally heard the conversation between the 3 people on the rostrum. At this moment, even Noah couldn't help but feel sorrowful. Of all the people, why did you mention me? Undoubtedly, one of the 10 Saint Magicians was also a contestant. In terms of fame and popularity, it should have been him. Of course, in terms of fame and popularity, Mira was not inferior to Jula. If it weren't for the 7-year gap, which gave Mira a chance to appear in front of the public, her fame and popularity would have been much higher than Jula's. Now, because of this fame and popularity, Noah directly became the most conspicuous existence. Everyone pointed their spears at the man who had won over such a famous and popular supermodel. Mira seemed to be very happy. Her eyes narrowed as she smiled. Noah is really popular. Really? Noah glanced at Mira grumpily. I just don't know who it is because of... Mira smiled and ignored Noah's grumpiness. Looking at the audience who were pointing at Noah, she mischievously hugged Noah's arm and intimately snuggled up to him. Oh! This time, the audience no longer burst into cheers. Instead, it stirred up a burst of cries and howls as if they had been stimulated. All of them were shedding tears of blood. All of them focused their eyes full of anger, jealousy, and resentment on Noah. At this time, Noah really had the urge to turn around and leave. At that moment, Noah sensed an extremely strong gaze being cast on him. There were 4 different gazes. One of them actually came from the Armored Man from Raventail. As early as last night, Noah had read the information of all the other guilds except Fairy Tale. The name flashed in his mind. Alexei. Fairy Tale's Noah Dole. Alexei stared at Noah and whispered in a low voice. I will definitely obtain the Lumen Starlight. Other than Alexei, the other 3 gazes were from 3 different guilds. One was Yukino from Sabretooth. One was Kagura from Mermaid Heel. The 2 girls have been showing excessive attention to Noah since yesterday. Therefore, Noah wasn't surprised at all by his performance. Instead, it was the last gaze that made Noah a little surprised. That line of sight came from Lamia's scale. The owner of the gaze was Tura. 7 years ago, I could only look at your back and offer you my respect. Tura had a smile full of fighting spirit on her face. For 7 years, I have been training. Sir Noah, I look forward to fighting with you. Hearing this, Noah raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. When the time comes, I won't be merciful. Tara did not say anything and only showed a satisfied expression. The other guilds also more or less showed a certain degree of attention to Noah, but it was not as intense as the four above. Under such circumstances, Chapati's voice began to sound. Then, I will now explain the rules of the great demonic martial arts exhibition. Following Chapati's voice, the ground in the center of the venue suddenly shook. In the next second, the gravel began to be pushed away, and a huge stone tablet rose from the ground. With a boom, it stood in the middle of the venue. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the stone tablet. They saw that on the stone tablet, there were 5 different elements. Each line represented the content of the great demonic martial arts exhibition for an entire day. In other words, the great demonic martial arts exhibition would be held for a total of 5 days. The first 4 days of the great demonic martial arts exhibition are made up of 2 parts. Chapati began to explain. The first part is the competition. The participants of each team can choose a contestant before the start of the competition, and then the content of the competition will be announced. There will be a ranking competition, and according to the ranking, the corresponding points will be awarded. The higher the ranking, the more points will be awarded. The first place will be awarded 10 points, the second place will be awarded 8 points, the third place will be awarded 6 points, the fourth place will be awarded 4 points, the fifth, sixth, and seventh place will be awarded 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point respectively, and the last place will not be awarded any points, that is, 0 points. The second part is the duel. The contestants are not freely chosen. Instead, the organizers will choose 8 members from each of the 8 teams based on popularity and other factors. They will compete in 4 one-on-one battles. In the end, the winning team will get 10 points. In the case of a draw, both teams will get 5 points. In the case of a loss, the losing team will get 0 points. In the end, at the end of the 5th day, the team with the highest score will be the winning team of the great demonic martial arts exhibition. Now, please choose your contestants for the first day of the competition. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.